Whitmire. Batted and intercepted. And it's Walcott bringing it back. Could he? Wire to wire. Sick 'em Bears. How about it?
Welcome to Sick'em 365 Radio.
First and throw. Smith and Jigba's open. And again, Stroud drops it in. Stiff arm all the way to the end zone. Touchdown, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Sick'em 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Corum. And Corum, what a move. Corum, he needs a block. Corum, down the sideline. Blake Corum, touchdown, Wolverines. 67 yards.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
3rd and 7. Blitz coming. Prescott in trouble. Lofting it to the corner. Gets there. Touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And good afternoon on this Thursday, August the 4th. The month that everything begins. Some has already begun. College football workouts, the NFL at training camps. There's a game. Is it tonight? The Hall of Fame game? Is that right? Not tonight.
It's
this weekend.
Yeah.
No, it's tonight.
It is tonight in Canton, Ohio,
Yes.
with the inductions and much more. It's a game that I used to never really miss, and now I love the inductions and stuff, what they do. It's always a huge day in Canton, as it is in the Baseball Hall of Fame as well, in Cooperstown. So today was supposed to be the day that the Pac-12's negotiating window was over. It appears as if it's come and gone. Will it be extended? Does it really matter if today was supposed to be the day? But today, August the 4th, was the day that was set that they would have the 30-day window of negotiation.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming, gone, or going. You know, I don't know if they, I guess there's probably still potential for them to be like, hey, guess what? We worked it out at the end of the day today. But it always was going to go. And now they can open it up to other bidders, and we'll see what that is. And what that is, has ramifications for the Big 12, too, because even if they're projected to get slightly more or more, if that more is still a low number from the Pac-12, what is more really? So there's a lot to go in there, and the Pac-12, this could really affect decisions for universities going forward if they start to not like what they hear over the next few months.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. We've gone over the timeline 1,000 times. We're going to hear from CBS sports writer Dennis Dodd. He did have something yesterday that was a little bit of an update about somebody who's advising, consulting with the Big 12 when it comes to television and also media rights, who's a 51-year-old. And he will join us today here in about 10 minutes on his thoughts about where we are, if anything new, compared to also what he brought up yesterday. Garrett, do we have that graphic for Texas Tech? We have been adding numerous schools behind us, the helmets and much more. Remember Brigham Young in West Virginia, probably the most recent. This is a box that was sent to us. Jack McKenzie has contacted numerous athletic departments, a Michael Crabtree jersey, some hats, footballs, the Final Four banner, a couple of basketballs, and so that was added. Thank you to Texas Tech's athletic department for sending all of that to us, and some of it we rotate behind us, mini helmets, and of course some other things as well.
I thought it was interesting they made sure to send some of that basketball stuff over.
Well, that's they're good.
Yeah.
They're really good.
Yeah.
And so there we are with that as well. So thanks to Texas Tech also for what they did. Here's an NIL graphic. Thought this would be interesting today. This was put up. The top 10 graphics, top 10 NIL collectives. Tennessee at the top. John Ruiz.
Just a guy. Just second. Just his name.
A&M in their fund. There's Oregon, Division Street. There's Gator Collective. Is that with Darren Heitmer?
Yeah, Darren Heitner, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's USC, the Foundation, which is Ohio State, the Matador Club, Texas Tech, Texas in their Clark Field Collective, and then Alabama, High Tide Traditions, 1 through 10, according to On3, the top 10 most ambitious NIL collectives in college athletics today. So there we are with a couple of graphics to start off with as well. All right, if Alabama seems to be the unanimous number 1 team in the country, which pretty much is the case, that doesn't mean you agree with that. Who would be your number 2? Would it be Georgia? Would it be Ohio State? Clemson? Who would it be?
To me, it's Ohio State. I think with C.J. Stroud coming back and Jackson Smith and Jigba and every weapon they have in that offense, and then you add Jim Knowles to that defense, which everybody we've talked to from Columbus says that they don't believe talent's the issue, it's scheme. Well, if he can scheme them up slightly better, this is a team who lost 2 games last year, one of them to Oregon and one of them to Michigan, where they got run right at. So if you can shore that up just a little bit, they don't have to be the best Ohio State defense ever in a year. If they can get a little bit better, to me, they're the number 2 team. Georgia's still up there, but they did lose a lot from that team that was very senior-laden and veteran-laden. And when you win the national championship, you get rated. Look, ask LSU what it was like to win the first one in a long time and then completely, have the roster gutted in a year. Now, Georgia's a little bit better off, obviously, depth-wise than they were, but even still, you got to allow for a little bit of a comeback down to earth with them, and we'll see what Clemson gets out of their quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with all that. I think that it's fair to think that Georgia might take a bit of a step down, although I think they're kind of in that Alabama position right now where any step down for them is – minute compared to what step downs actually are for most programs around the country, where you'd be looking at a full-on rebuild following a season like that. Instead, they just reload. But, I think I'd look at it the same way. And I'm very curious just because we got so used to Clemson being in that same mix and being in that position themselves of just kind of how they are following a year where it wasn't like that for the first time in a while, where we weren't talking about them week in and week out necessarily right there alongside the other contenders. And, they had a pretty good run there at quarterback for a while. Their situation's still better than most, but it's enough of a question mark that it's kind of like, okay, let's see kind of what happens here. And enough of a question mark to wonder if we're not going to see a young Texan see some snaps this season. They're interesting to see how they bounce back, so to speak. But I'd go Ohio State at 2. I think they're pretty loaded, although, we'll see how Jim Knowles does defensively. There's plenty of reason to believe that, he might have a little bit of growing pains. That would be probably understandable in most places, but I know the Ohio State, that's kind of in their eyes the missing piece with all they have offensively. So we'll see if he can connect those dots and get them into that position. But, yeah, they should be really good.
There are some of you who answered it yourself. Ohio State's part of it. In fact, some, who was it, Paxton? Utah at 4 for me. Okay. Obviously with a lot back. Georgia, Utah, 3 and 4 from Joey. And some other responses as well from those of you, the Ohio State University, Ohio State, Alabama, Ohio State 1 and 2, Ohio State, Bama 1 and 2. And the reason I brought that up, we have started so many shows, and deservedly and obviously expected, with what is happening because of college football's changes, college football possibly with the playoff, the expansion, it's dead for at least a couple of years it appears, and really NIL and transfer portal. And I just thought it would be refreshing and although Dennis Dodd's coming on in a minute to talk about realignment, to just ask a football question about possibly wins and losses.
Well, and I'll say this again, going back to Ohio State. Baylor had a situation, after its first couple of years of success with Art Briles, where they could score nearly at will, but so could everyone that played them. So they needed to bring in a defensive coordinator, and I think the expectations early on for Phil Bennett were, okay, in a year, he's going to make this defense into, the doomsday defense. Well, that was not the goal. If Baylor is only losing, when they lose by 10 to 14 points, 2 touchdowns at a point where they're gassed and the defense can't stop anybody or losing late, then all the goal really needs to be to incrementally get better is 1 or 2 possessions a half, maybe just 1 a quarter is kind of the goal of 1 a quarter, don't give up a touchdown.
Yes.
Then that's 28 points less that you've given up. And then all of a sudden you saw while Baylor's defensive numbers were still objectively terrible, they were still winning games by 24 points because they weren't giving up those ridiculous garbage touchdown, but like wide open touchdowns.
I thought they could if it could be just one stop a half.
Yeah, again.
Because it wasn't, so few and far between.
Yeah, and then that first year was, RG3 wins the Heisman and they go 10-3 and win the Alamo Bowl. And the Alamo Bowl was a terrible defensive performance. I wish I could quote what Phil said to me the morning after when I saw him in the lobby, but I can't. But they got better incrementally over time to the point where just right down the line, here they are winning Big 12 championships.
From Sergeant Pickles 13, throw out the 6 or 7 usual suspects when it comes to your top 4 or 5 into a blender, pull out 4. I have to admit I care very little for rankings anymore. They don't mean what they used to. And I think that what rankings mean more than anything else is just good fodder and discussion, maybe a little bit of fan base argument. And we have some of that going on anyway, but it is kind of neat. And it's a pride factor. And it's also, hey, wait a minute, somebody doesn't believe in us, and people like to manufacture a chip as well.
That's just TV networks putting numbers on teams to get you to watch more. Because what's going to get you to pull in Utah versus Cal coming up this Saturday, or number 12 Utah, number 15 Cal. This game matters because of these numbers in front of them, right? I like the rankings, but I don't like them necessarily right out of the gates because it just feels like they sort of get to set the chess pieces up the way they want to. And, there's some, at least maybe not so much now in the playoff era, but previously you could kind of just like get the fortune of being selected pretty high right out of the gates. And then you're just kind of set for, a majority of the year because of how high you started off, even if it was undeserved. It was just all based off what they read in Phil Steele's, basically. It's like, oh, you're number 3 in the country. You had a good recruiting class and stuff. It's just like we're just guessing because we have seen no games whatsoever. We're just really going off of last year and what we think you did this offseason. So you're number 3 in the country. And didn't even let them, you know what I'm saying? It was a TV thing to put numbers there to get people to have a sexier matchup to watch rather than just Team A versus Team B. Gave it some feeling of it matters and they're ranked teams and all that. I like that when I know that they're ranked for a reason. I don't like it in week 1 when it's like, this is just what reporters thought should be the top 5, top 25 teams.
You know what's just funny about it? Because of the preseason rankings, you'll have things like, well, LSU beat Texas when Texas was number 11 in the country, but that team was never at any point the 11th best team in the country unless they were only 11 teams in the country.
Exactly.
That would have, they were not the 11th best team. But then later on, as part of a debate, when they're trying to do the first 8, they beat the number 11 team in the country.
Yeah.
They beat the number 6 team in the country. What are those teams now when you're making the rankings? That's what they are, not what they were, or not what somebody said they were arbitrarily before anybody played more than a game.
Before there was evidence. One of the things, though, that used to happen, and I believe this is maybe even back before the playoff, and perhaps it's still part of the deal with the playoff. We don't know because we always get a different answer from the committee each week. But you might beat a team that actually was very, very highly ranked early in the year, and then they had injuries, suffered a quarterback problem, or a quarterback injury, was legitimately a top 5 team based on not what they were the year before, but who they had coming back and who they are. And then they had something go wrong in September. And then at the end of the year, should you be penalized because they were unranked?
No, I think that's what they all build into it. I'm just saying, week number 1, you're going to tell me that Texas is the number 6 team in the country, and then it's clearly, the case that they were not, but that still counts as a number 6 win. That's, there's not an exact way to do it, because I know they would never go for everybody starts off unranked. But I wouldn't be so opposed to, hey, at least give it a week, and then you come out after the first week and you have those rankings. It's not that big of a deal to me. I know it's a TV thing, like I said, but it's just, it's funny to me the rankings, at least in week 1, kind of how that works.
One of the things, and that's why they don't do the college football playoffs, the rankings, until there is evidence on the table. So at least they've got that apparently right. And even then, there's going to be arguments about who is this or also who is that. So we're here tonight, this afternoon until 6 o'clock. We will have Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com recruiting analyst, but also covers Baylor football. He'll join us today at 4. Normally with us on Fridays. He'll be with us today at 4. Mickey from Oxnard, California. Craig's off the radar as well in Paul's Top 5 later in the show. We're now joined by CBSSports.com college football writer, columnist Dennis Dodd on Sikkim 365 Radio. Dennis, is it quiet today? Is any day for you right now covering the landscape of college football quiet?
It's quiet so far, Smokey. This was supposed to be the day that the Pac-12's exclusive negotiating window expired with ESPN and Fox, but I think it's going to expire, and that this thing's going to go out to bid for the Pac-12 because I don't know any of those schools who want to sign agreements.
Dennis, why did the Big Ten cool over the last week on any further expansion with the Pac-12 teams?
I think they just want to concentrate on the 16. As I wrote originally, those 4 don't bring pro rata, which is equal value to the amount produced by the existing 16 schools, and that was going to be a huge problem. Not only did they not bring the value, they brought significantly less value. And it wasn't going to be, if they decided to do it, it wasn't going to be included in this contract anyway, which is going to be announced this month. I'm talking about the Big Ten contract, which is going to really have a profound effect not only on what we're talking about for college athletics, because it's going to be the biggest media rights deal ever in college for a conference. So it's, it's not that they couldn't do it down the line, but it just doesn't make sense to do it now when they're still trying to wedge in USC and UCLA as a conversation.
So, Dennis, where does this kind of leave the Pac-12 schools in your mind? I know you've talked about, the Big Ten media rights, and you just discussed that and how that kind of comes into play. But the fact that they've got this deal coming up, I mean, kind of what do they do if you're Oregon, Washington, and even the schools that might not be one of those that thought they'd have a chance to maybe move elsewhere?
I don't think they go away. Their fallback, if I guess they don't get coached, is like 10, stay together 10 strong. And somebody, I said, well, that's kind of dangerous, isn't it? And the person said, well, the Big 12 did it. And I said, well, no, they didn't. They lost Texas and Oklahoma, and then they retrenched right away. So I don't know if that's good strategy or not. I think they'll survive. I think there'll be some sort of conference that exists with Pac-12 teams in it. That makes sense? I don't know what it'll be called if they get rated by the Big 10 and Big 12, but maybe a Mountain West Plus. But I think there'll be some conference with Pac-12 teams in it.
Do you think the Big 12 has actually offered anybody from the Pac-12?
Well, define offer. I mean, typically the communication between these schools is way, way, way below the radar, because if it gets a sniff from the conference lawyers, they can immediately file a lawsuit for tortious interference. And so it's almost like USC, UCLA. Until it actually happens, it doesn't happen. Has there been communication? Absolutely. I would dare say maybe every school in the Big 12 called the Pac-12 last year when the Big 12 was injured by the loss of Texas and Oklahoma. But for whatever reason, the Pac-12 decided not to take any more teams at that time. In fact, the vote, as I reported yesterday, was 8-4 against, and really scuttled by Carol Folt, the president of USC, really said, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this at all? Well, I think, Carol, you might have some selfish reasons why you're not doing that, but that's another story. So, yeah, it's safe to say there's been communication.
What do you think the future is for the Big 12 now going forward, that maybe they can poach some teams? Do you feel they're in a position of strength, or is everyone in a varying degree of strength depending on whatever the SEC and Big Ten decide to do long term?
Well, they think they're in a position of strength because as of right now, the 12 are really committed to each other going forward. Obviously, they haven't signed a grant of rights because the deal doesn't expire till 25, but they feel really good about the 12 and how it's valued. It has been valued by a combination of Endeavor, which is their sports media advisor, and Mark Shapiro, who I think is the president of that group or executive director. And they're being valued at, they're going to get it. Right now they're being told they're going to get more than they thought, maybe north of $30 million per school, which is a giant a reduction of the existing Big 12 schools, but for the 4 new ones, it's a huge gain. So they think it's not a big advantage over the Pac-12, but it's enough of one now to stay together, consider poaching teams.
Dennis, what do you expect in terms of the Big Ten TV deal and any type of a timeline? Are you expecting that relatively soon like it seems a lot of others are?
Well, I wrote in May that Kevin Warren told me, the commissioner, that he expected something around Memorial Day. Well, that came and went. Then June 30th popped up, which is the day USC and UCLA, that announcement came. So that reconfigured the whole thing. And so I guess my latest is, long story short, expect something by the beginning of the season. Because that goes online, let's see, those teams come in 2024, I believe, USC and UCLA. So I would expect something that will, by all professional industry source accounts, is going to be a record north of $1 billion annually for the Big Ten. Now, to put that in perspective, the Big Ten is coming off a 6-year deal with Fox and ESPN, the total value of which is $2.64 billion. We're talking about more than $1 billion annually, so you can see how big that is.
What happens if it doesn't get to that point? Do you feel like they wouldn't say that, or they may be ahead of the skis a little bit on the number, or do you feel like that's just industry talk?
In what regard? What number are you talking about?
The $1 billion, or now with USC and UCLA.
Oh, that's just I get that from Sports Business Journal, which is the publication. That's all they do is this stuff, and they're the ones that have been going with this for months, basically since May. That industry sources are saying it's going to be north of $1 billion. I've had no one contradict them. In other words, their reporting is pretty good, and I have every reason to believe that's the case. Now, USC and UCLA are going to bring added value to that, but really equal value. In other words, they will, whatever it is, 80 to 100 million per school. So it's going to be about 1.2 billion, just slightly under that per year for the Big Ten. Now that they have 16 teams, once that contract starts. So no, that's where I'm getting that, and I have no reason to believe that's not true.
So if the Big Ten and SEC are happy to sit at 16 for now, is it just sitting at 16 for now while they figure out the next move, or is that do you see an end game here where everybody stays alive, or at least 4 conferences stay alive somehow?
Well, the first question is Big Ten done?
Yeah, who knows, right?
Yeah, no, was that the question?
Yeah, you said they're kind of happy at 16 right now. Does that mean that they could be potentially done down the line, or?
Well, Kevin Warren, the commissioner of the Big Ten, really scared a lot of people on their media days last Tuesday, I guess it was, when he kind of went Brett Warmark. He didn't say we're open for business, but he referred to future expansion. He said we're going to be aggressive 7 times. He said the word bold 3 times. I had people texting and calling me saying, what is going on? They're scared that this guy's going to do more. No, I would say that, look, this all starts with Notre Dame. Forget everything else. Notre Dame is a standing invitation to basically join any league at once. And that would be, right now, the Big Ten would be first. So Notre Dame, based on the numbers I'm telling you just now, they would have to evaluate where they stand, is either going to join the Big Ten or stay independent. I think they're going to stay independent. Then the next question is, does the Big Ten, do anything else? And after that, I think what we've already seen, it's a Big Two and a group of 8 right now. That maybe the ACC, when this shakes out, is right up there with them, but not really. Their cost for their annual revenue for those schools is locked in for the next 14 years, averaging $36 million per school. So, but I think with the power, the prestige, the recruiting ability, the television pull of those 2 top conferences, it's the power 2 right now in a group of 8.
Dennis, what are your thoughts on all the chatter here as of late, going back to talking about the college football playoff and the potential expansion of that. Obviously, we've had comments from Warren and Sankey and power players involved in that, kind of revisiting the topic here lately. How much of an impact, or I guess first of all, how much do you believe that something could get done sooner rather than later in terms of that? And how much does that also become a wild card in what conferences may be looking at is what that setup could be sooner rather than later?
Well, Mark Keenum, who's the president of Mississippi State and the chair of the CFB Board of Managers right now, basically said he thinks it'll get done by next summer, which is really shocking. As of February, we're going to have to wait, 4 more years to even revisit this?
Yeah.
And now the commissioners themselves have floated the idea of 16. And this is just my opinion. I think that's where we're headed because it's too easy. With 16, because we have some sort of settling now. So 32 teams at the top, Big Ten, SEC. With 16, that provides for the max that either of those schools could get in. Let's say 4. That's 18 per year, and that I think that's being generous. But that's why you do 16, so the power conferences can get all they want. That leaves 8 other spots for the other conferences plus Notre Dame. If you just look at any top 16 at the end of the season, before the season, middle of the season, let's say the AP poll, the top 16 teams are going to get taken care of. That's a legitimate playoff in anybody's mind because they're also, I don't know if you noticed, Sankey's talking about all at large, no conference champions, no automatic conference champions, which then it makes it even more accessible, I think, to the group of 8. Oh, okay, if our conference champion gets upset, he can still get in. It's not automatic. Yes, you can. I think that's where they'll end up, and it makes a lot of sense. What I can't get past yet is how they sell this 2 teams playing 17 games. 2 teams in the championship game will probably end up playing an NFL schedule, and I don't know how they sell that. I know how they were selling it to 12, that the average team in the playoff is only playing less than 1 more game per year. Because of Notre Dame, it doesn't play a conference championship game. So if you sell it that way, yeah, it makes sense. But every year there's going to be 2 teams playing 17 games. I don't know how they get it.
Dennis, would you recognize if 2 conferences go big and then decide based on network or whoever that they're going to have their own national championship playoff?
Well, that's the leverage here, isn't it? That they're saying it without saying it. And Greg Sankey has already said, hey, if you guys don't want to agree, we can have, we'd have our own playoff. I don't know how somebody would pay for that. I don't know what it would determine, but they could do it. With the Big Ten, you're just about there. There's not many teams you'd have to add to have a legitimate playoff with those 2 leagues. And a network would pay big money for that. Cincinnati goes undefeated, who cares? I'm not saying that. I'm saying they could.
Right.
Boise State goes undefeated, who cares? Then you're talking about Clemson, Florida State, Miami from the ACC. It's either join up or do what we say. You could see it happening, or we'll just do it ourselves. I don't know if the presidents would allow it, but they've gotten this far. They ripped asunder 2 leagues in the last 2 years with the help of the network. The Big 12 and the Pac-12. The Big 12 reorganized. I don't know if the Pac-12 is going to. They probably will, but they've shown no remorse in that thing. So if the presidents are running things, it sure doesn't look like it.
Dennis, one more thing for me, and Craig has a follow-up. We know if you have something, you got to get a call or whatever. I know you got to go, and we appreciate your time. When Brett Yormark made the comment about that he wanted a conference, the Big 12, to be hip, etc. I know you wrote the comment about Iowa State, Cincinnati. Will you get a lot of Christmas cards from those fan bases?
Oh, that was strictly tongue-in-cheek. I mean, who doesn't think that? When you think of the Big 12, you don't think hip, young, and cool. I understand what he was saying, but the first thing I thought of, there's going to be a lot of Iowa State, Cincinnati games out there. They're going to get what they're going to get. The numbers are enough. But I've covered the Big 12 and the Big 8 for 40 years. So I think I know a little bit what I'm talking about then. If people can't take a joke, that's on them. But I think you know where I'm coming from.
No, and you've been covering the game for a long time, and you do go back to the days of the Big 8 as well. There's no question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dennis, bear with me here because we had James Crepia on yesterday, and he had some interesting thoughts on the future of college football. And guys, you kind of might have to help me with this, but he was talking about the playoff and how we're all getting caught up in, if the playoff might expand, and that means that the Big 12 would be safe and the Pac-12 would be safe and they'd have their representative. But then he turned it on its head. He says, but what if they agree to expand the playoff, but that doesn't mean that those other teams get in, and it is just 8 SEC and it's 8 Big 10 schools? What's really preventing that?
I think in the short run, what I just said, because I wrote about it yesterday. If they get any bigger than 16, I'm talking about the SEC and the Big 10. You're talking about Congress getting interested. You're talking about collusion, maybe antitrust allegations, where hey, they've monopolized the game. So they've kind of stopped at the edge of this cliff. Again, we're talking about them getting bigger. Maybe they will, but their lawyers have gotten them to this point without any oversight from Congress. I think that's what they have to watch out for. And that's why, at least in the short term, they're going to organize that playoff and have organized that playoff, the 12 that didn't fly, around access. I think with 16, you get the same access. You actually get more access than you did with 12. I think the thing to watch, and I've been asking this since Texas and Oklahoma went to the SEC, or the announcement came, is that when these commissioners get back in a room and decide on playoff expansion and decide what the revenue split's going to be, I can almost guarantee you the way the game is now, it ain't going to be equal. It's equal now. Those 5 get whatever it is, $66 million a year just for being in the Power 5 for starters. I think after those top 2, it goes way down. Pac-12, Big 12, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and then you go down another level with the American and Conference USA. They're not going to get the same amount. They may even have to pick from a pool. So the same way the Group of 5 does now. I think that's the next thing to watch. In the short term, I think there's going to be that.
Do you think, Dennis, and my final question, do you think the Big 12 in the end, whenever they start to get information with Shapiro and obviously with your mark and all the others, that they will end up getting more money per year than you thought?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know what I thought, because Bob Bowlesby immediately after this happened last summer went before the Texas Senate, I think, or something, and testified that the league had lost 50% of its value. So in the last year of the contract, I think somebody told me the Big 12 teams will get $44 million each with the current contract. Well, if it's 50%, they're down to $22 million. So now if they're being told it's north of $30 million, well, that's good compared to last summer. But can an Iowa State afford a Matt Campbell to re-sign him? If a big-time coach comes on the market, can they afford to go after him? Can they start now not being able to afford charters to travel or recruiting budgets or stuff like that? That's what we're talking about. And I haven't even mentioned debt service in building facilities. So I think that's the additional questions here. Yeah, more than I thought initially. Yeah, but that is all relevant based on what I just talked about.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate your time. Dennis Dodd, CBSSports.com. And as we're interviewing Dennis, and I know that everybody is at a fever pitch when it comes to the hair on the back of your neck, and your pride of your teams and your conferences. And yes, that column, it sparked a lot of people from Cincinnati and Iowa State that were pissed off. Just feel like it was very flippant. Dennis Gate, I asked him the question. He answered the question. You don't have to like it, but he answered the question. Did I think it was unfair to use those 2 teams? What was he going to use? Was he going to say Texas Tech, West Virginia? I don't know. But I do think right now, and I love it because of your pride, but there is so much oversensitivity to everything being said.
Well, I can take it one step further. As cool as we may think we are as college football fans, whether you're Miami or USC, all that, Austin, we're not. We're not cool. We wear big shirts with big logos on it. We're not Brad Pitt, So, I mean, maybe he singled those out, but all of us kind of fit in that big college football nerd category.
And I'm not trying to say you shouldn't feel that way at all. I think it's fantastic. That's why college football is the second greatest sport in America as far as interested, et cetera. But I do think that there's just everybody looking for anything to be pissed off about when it comes to why did he bring up this team? How come he's not doing
who cares?
this?
I mean, let them react how they want to react. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you can talk, you can preach to him all you want to, but dude from Cincinnati is going to react how he wants to Dennis Dodd's comments. So it is what it is. But
I never said they shouldn't.
Okay, all right.
What I'm saying is that it seemed like as soon as I see this immediately, and I just can everyone just take a deep breath for a second? In the end, you know what? Whatever conferences end up being saved, yeah, I hope all of them are. Whoever ends up in the playoff or not. It's gotten to the point where there's so much bitterness and anger. It's not even wins and losses right now, although it could be your future. So I understand why you are a little bit on edge at times when your team or conference is brought up as not hip or out of the picture. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Dr. Steve Childress, Stonewood Dental, does my dental work and has been doing that now for a couple of years. Love the work he gives me, and also the fact that the accessibility, even at times when his office doors are closed. He has met me at Stonewood Dental in Robinson when I had a really, really bad pain with a molar in my bottom of my mouth. One time I walked in on a Friday morning when it's packed as it can be as they're getting into the weekend, and they have all of the appointments filled, and I had something with my top left side molar, and I got in. It wasn't easy for them, but it allowed me to be able to at least have some relief, and never said a word. I was very fortunate. He's unbelievable. So is his staff, hygienists, and other dentists, and also the support staff as well at Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. We'll read text and also chat, plus a couple of other stories, college football-wise and more. Grayson Grundhafer today at 4 o'clock, normally Fridays at 3:45. Sikkim 365 recruiting analyst and also co-host of the Bearcast. I'm hoping, it appears as if we will have Tim Brando at some point tomorrow, and we'll give you the time on that when I get that confirmed as well. Right now, thank you to the nearly 600 of you online watching. Like button, if you wouldn't mind, thumbs up, like button. We'd appreciate you doing that as well. From our web, bottom line, the Dodd comment was flippant. You can make the same point without calling our specific schools, and a journalist of his stature should be better than that.
I think that's fair.
That's fair.
I mean, he said what he said. Fans responded in kind, and he certainly felt the backlash of it. And he just got straight up about it. A lot of people wouldn't even have asked that question, and he answered it. And you can agree with his answer, not agree with his answer, but both sides have spoken. So yeah, if you want to remain pissed off because of what he said, then I don't blame you. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it's just a snarky comment that probably got a little bit more action than he expected, joking or not. And he'll be smart enough to not make that comment again if he wants to avoid the heavy inbox fluctuation that he probably got a week or two ago when he said that.
From our web, that said, as usual, appreciate you asking the question. When he said it, I read the column, which was about a month ago, or not quite a month ago, it's been less than that, about maybe 3 weeks ago or so, I saw it. I said, why'd you have to say those two? Especially with Cincinnati coming off what they did, and Iowa State has been better, more consistent lately than they've ever been in the history of their program. But he could have named a couple of others as well, and he decided to use Iowa State, Cincinnati. Believe me, he's heard from those fan bases, and that's why I brought up the question. I could have just avoided it since it was 3 weeks ago, but I'm glad I did, and now you all can take it for what you want. From Stephen, because Dennis Dodd has a keyboard and is with CBS, we need to respect his opinions. That was Bush League, quite frankly. I'll take him to task for his arrogant attitude. That's your call, Stephen. That's why I brought it up. I didn't let it go by. I brought it up. That's why I asked him the question as well. All right, now also, Tim Brando needs to break out of his shell from Sir blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I know that's too much for me right there.
Okay, think of it this way. Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. So also, from Provo Cougar, it would be interesting to review the preseason AP poll of 2021 to the final poll. Same with the preseason picks for the finishing in the Big 12 of how they actually finished. Well, we know that Baylor was picked like 7 or 8, ended up winning the conference. And so that's why this year, if somebody was to come out of that 5-team group or so that we've talked about and wins the conference, would it be shocking? It all depends. I mean, that's why they don't play the games based on rankings or power index. They play the games with the football, players on the field, coaches, and also results. The scoreboard tells it all.
I have it right here. Here's
right.
the preseason, and without looking at the postseason, I can tell you, here are the teams that did not live up to billing. The top 6 were all pretty good, although Clemson had a down year. Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, and A&M. Of course, Georgia won the whole shooting match. Iowa State at 7. Did not finish 7th. Cincinnati at 8th.
Yeah,
it was in the playoff.
They nailed it.
Notre Dame at 9, about what Notre Dame was last year. North Carolina at 10. They were not 10th. Oregon at 11th. No. A little below 11th. Yeah. Wisconsin at 12th. Finished strong. Florida 13, Miami 14. Both those teams well below that fired their coach.
Yep.
USC 15 fired their coach.
Yep.
Early in the season, LSU 16. Fired their coach.
It's a pretty good run right now.
Yeah. Indiana 17.
They had the year before that. That's the year they had. Yeah.
You think about this, though. This is like, okay, let's start off the NFL season, and we're going to put the Cowboys are the number 14. I mean, I know it's totally different, but, I mean, that's kind of what it is. Like, the Cowboys would be ranked high every year, whether they deserved it or not, because, and that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the same names that clearly were not deserving of their rankings. Half of them, you just mentioned, have fired their coaches already. I mean, that's why the preseason poll, when I see that, I realize it's just for show. It's just for TV. Yeah. And it's just throwing darts out there. Like, yes, it's easy to predict Alabama at number 1. If you were wrong, okay, you were wrong by, like, a spot. But I think, like, past, like, the top 3 or 4, who the hell really knows?
Yeah. Iowa is the last team on this list. Well, no, there's one more. Iowa's preseason 18, and they pretty much they were better than that a little bit when it came to them. But Penn State down, Washington fired their coach, Texas lost to Kansas, didn't make a bowl game, Coastal Carolina at 22, Louisiana at 23, Utah at 24. They certainly finished
absolutely
up.
Underrated.
Arizona State didn't fire their coach, probably going to fire him now, though.
So would you say, out of everyone you mentioned, are there 5 to 7 programs in the top 25 preseason poll that don't have the same coach? Because there's like 4 or 5 in a row that you mentioned.
2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5.
Okay. And Indiana was
6,
coming off a year. Okay, that's between 5 and 7. That's exactly what it was. So Indiana was coming off that pretty good year.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they seemed like they had some momentum. It did not work out. And there were some teams in the Big Ten during the COVID year that just weren't very good at all, that were better than what their record indicated, but just not that year. And it's interesting, man. It's interesting to watch.
But that shows you like films like a team having the media guy. This is the 25th straight year we've been in the top 25 to start. I mean, I guess that shows consistency, but then you think about it, it's like, yeah, but clearly there were some of those years where you didn't deserve it at all. But it's still in your media guy because it's like some media dude decided, yeah, they're number 12 based on the offseason and a year ago. So yeah, I don't put a lot of stock into those initial polls.
And again, it was already hard enough to figure out when player movement was very restricted.
Right.
Now that it's completely wide open, I mean, it is seriously, a wild-ass guess. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it is absolutely, after Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, I'm guessing.
Yeah, everybody is. I mean, for the most part, everybody is. I mean, there might be some more knowledgeable than others, but for the most part, you could throw just whoever you want to out there, and you can make a case for them right now. Yeah. And we'll see in several months what that actually looks like at the end, but nobody really knows the moment.
Yeah, and without looking at the schedules in front of me, those top 3 or 4 teams are the only ones that I cannot give you beyond tragic doomsday scenarios why they would lose more than 1 or 2 games. Everyone else, okay, Oklahoma, for example, we've talked about them. I can give you a scenario where they might lose 4. I can give you a scenario where they might be 11-1. I don't really know because there's so much turnover there. Look, A&M, I can give you a scenario where they're 11-1. I can also give you a scenario much more likely that they will be 8-4 because that's what history tells us. I can give you a scenario where LSU bounces back and contends for the SEC West. But I don't know between 3 and maybe 4 guys who the quarterback's going to be, right, Garrett?
Yeah, it's going to be rough, man.
Yeah, again, if you're going into a 3-person quarterback battle, in August, that's not where you want to be. But if everything else works out and all their transfers, play up, then fine. But yeah, I give me somebody, I'll give you the good and the bad.
It is, for example, Texas most likely will be ranked in the top 25, and they were ranked in this top 25, and Paxton goes, how can you not rank them in the top 25? Here's why. They will be. They almost always will be, no matter coaching transitions or not, because for the last 12 years, how many times, and I don't know the answer, I'm going to say 3 times, how many times since 2010, the year after they played for the national title, have they actually outperformed their preseason ranking and or the hype?
Yeah, just the Sugar Bowl year.
And even then, they lost 4 games that year.
Yeah.
They beat Oklahoma and then lost to OU in the Big 12 championship game, and then they got Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And that's why, if they're not ranked, that would be a legitimate reason why. And again, some of the reasons they are ranked because, well, they have a lot of you got to have a number. You
got to have a ranking for that Alabama game in week 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it's TV. I mean, that's why they do top 25 rankings more than anything else. I mean, yeah, Texas, Alabama puts butts in seats, but doesn't make the commercial as shiny when it's not number 1 Alabama, number 16 Texas, versus the alternative. So, I think that could be something that, let's watch week 1 first and see how that goes. And then, boom, you want to slap some numbers on them, then great, and at least be more accurate. And I know it wouldn't tell the whole tale in week 1. There's not a perfect way to do it. But, yeah, they've clearly benefited from just having a logo and people just – like, here's the thing with Texas. This is the thing with Texas last year. Everybody keeps predicting them to be back just because eventually they'll be right. Like, they don't – clearly nobody really knows because they've been swinging and missing for like a decade on when they were back and when they weren't. I think everybody's just expecting it. It's just like someday we'll say this and they'll actually be that good and we'll be like, oh, wow, like, yes, they are back and then move on from there. But it's just like a lot of just hope more than actual facts that are bringing them that number most of the time.
And I'll tell you, fans, you are doing a disservice to your own team by putting unfair expectations on them until they earn it. Because you create culture problems. I'll give you the example of
if I was a Texas fan, I wouldn't want a preseason ranking,
exactly.
Man.
I'll give you the example of the Dallas football Cowboys.
No, okay, go ahead.
The Dallas Cowboys.
I just responded to somebody.
The Dallas Cowboys are the same way. I mean, as a lifelong Cowboys fan, it took me after the 90s, and of course I was young in the 90s, so it's 15, going to be 16 when they won their last Super Bowl. So at that point, it took me until my mid-20s to say, like, oh, maybe it's not going to turn around that quick. And then it took me again until my 30s and working in this business to go, oh, no, Jerry Jones is kind of full of ish sometimes, and this is all kind of bravado. And now that I'm 42, I don't give them any expectations. When we would go to training camp and come back and people say, how do they look? I say, well, I know they could beat the Cowboys. That's what I know. That's what you know almost about every NFL team, but particularly the Cowboys. And I know that they'll find some way to screw it up. So I'm not going to say this is a Super Bowl team. Absolutely, they're Super Bowl quality, they're Super Bowl caliber. I can give you 20 reasons why they won't win the Super Bowl almost every year, even on their best years. And that's why they don't deserve the hype. And the fans putting the hype on them creates this sense of like, I'm a badass Dallas Cowboy.
You're a Dallas Cowboy. Do the fans put the hype on them?
Maybe not as much, but like the hype from the fans or the expectation that this is the year and it's all going to turn around, I think, especially from the ownership on down, has created a very entitled sense of who they really are in that locker room. And they're not Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith. No. They are the Cowboys of now, not the Cowboys of then. The same thing applies in college football locker rooms, and the one who's struggling with it the most, and the people it pisses off the most, I'll tell you, are those Texas X's that played on those teams, that walk in those locker rooms now, and those kids walk around like they've done something. Those guys are pissed.
That's the gift and the curse. You want to be the biggest brand and have the most money, well, then you're going to get the most attention most of the time, even when you don't even necessarily deserve it. I mean, that's the Cowboys, that's UT, that's whoever else you want. That's the Lakers, that's, that's the Yankees. That's, that's kind of what comes with having the big logos and that, that big stick that, you've had all this tradition and power and glory and everything else that comes with that. That's just part of what you sign up for. And, some are able to live up to that and some aren't. And, I think there's a desire. Again, it's all media driven. I mean, does Skip Bayless go and talk about the Jaguars? Or is he going to talk about the Cowboys over and over and over again? I don't know. I don't watch. But I just assume from the random clip I see from whoever does watch that, he talks about the Cowboys more than he talks about the Jaguars. Yeah. Right? I wonder why that is. Well, more fans, more viewers, more TV, or more whatever. If we really wanted to be cheap and cheesy, we'd come on here every day and just talk about Ohio State and Georgia and Texas and Alabama, and we just and then we'd cut it off at like 15 schools. But no, we are going to talk BYU and Cincinnati and Baylor and not just Big 12 schools, but Stanford and whoever else. And I hope that all college shows do that. But that's what you see. If you want to get the eyeballs, then talk about the biggest brands with the biggest fans. So rather than doing the video that would actually be really cool on TCU, I'm going to do it on Oklahoma. Why? Because Oklahoma's going to get me 10,000 more views. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is more than anything.
And also, if you have not noticed this as well, whatever network you watch, if you do, some of those, especially during the mornings and even the afternoons or whatever, there are times when two people will argue over a topic in which one of them doesn't believe in what they're saying they're arguing for.
Yeah, but that happens a lot.
It's boring if they're both agreeing with each other.
Yeah.
And so
I disagree with you.
Yeah. Just because
it's not boring.
And I don't know if they flip a coin or it's
and I'm going to start arguing with you guys, we need to circle back to Dodd and talk about some of what he talked about,
All
because I don't believe every single thing that's being said, quite frankly.
Just say it.
Yeah, I don't think that just because he says that the Big Ten's lost interest, that the Big Ten's necessarily lost interest. I think that we have been played so much as media and as fans that I just don't believe anything anybody says anymore. So I think that, yeah, there's probably a good chance that the Big Ten's sitting back right now and going, yep, we're done. We're good where we are. We just added USC and UCLA. We know they're waiting to hear something from Notre Dame. Like, that's a given. But why say or why give the indication that you're actually out on the prowl if you don't know what's going to happen next just yet? You know, it's easy to say you're not going to do anything right now, but if Notre Dame comes calling later on tonight and says, hey, Kevin, we're joining the Big Ten tomorrow, guess who's getting a phone call? Probably somebody in the Pac-12, right? Yeah. So, yeah, right now they may not be all that interested or as interested as they were. I can believe that to an extent, but I don't think that means in any way, shape, or form, nor was Dennis maybe, saying this, but I'm sure some people will take it of like, oh, well, that's done then. Like, they're not going to. No, I think for now, for today, for this moment, yeah, the Big Ten's maybe not as interested in some more Pac-12 additions. Because of the value and all of that. But I do think that could change very quickly if one lever was pulled and that was the Irish lever or something along those lines. I don't even know what something else along those lines would be. But, yeah, I still think that I think that anything and everything is up for debate and up for potentially happening outside of just the obviously, the Big Ten's not adding, like, USF or, who would just be somebody real?
I'll help you. I don't need to help you, but I would say anybody but maybe 10 teams would move the needle. I don't even know if 3 teams. I don't even know, other than Notre Dame, if anybody moves the needle.
Yeah, like there's just some things that, there are certain things that are off the table and are not going to happen. But in terms of movement from the power conferences to another one, or the growth of one and the subtractions in another, and maybe the death of some others like the Pac-12 or the Big 12 or the whoever, I think all of that's on the table. Outside of just, again, if something happens in the ACC, it's not going to be necessarily like Louisville getting the ball rolling by jumping to the SEC or something. But like a combination of something like that happening with Florida State and Miami and something down the line, I'm totally believing that could happen. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what the only thing the ACC can do is get a majority group together and decide this is over.
Yeah.
Like
But that's what I'm saying. It's like outside of, just stupid ideas of, Vanderbilt's getting courted by the Big 12. That's not going to happen. Let's eliminate that silly stuff that we all know is silly. But anything else, which is a lot of other things, combinations of teams moving from one to the other, or eventually being the Super 2 and 30 teams apiece, 35 teams apiece, 40 teams apiece, whatever. I'm all ears to that and open-minded to pretty much everything and anything could still happen. And, that's from hearing what Dennis has said. That's from hearing just what James said yesterday. I mean, his idea is a little off the wall, sure, but we're really sitting here when we've been talking about Kevin Warren just made George Kliavkoff look like a complete fool on multiple occasions, and we saw what Oklahoma and Texas did all sneaky behind the Big 12 last summer. And, look, I'm not even, knocking them for what they did necessarily, but with how secretive that was, you mean to tell me there's probably not some other secrets going on? You know what I mean? So that's where I'm coming from with everything, and I'm open to the idea that, there could be some feeling of, oh, well, if the Pac gets their TV deal, everything just settles down. No, I think all chaos is possible right now. So I'm not necessarily on board with the idea of, just based on his article, that because the Big Ten's sort of cooling, that means that, oh, well, everybody in the Pac-12 can now just worry about themselves and what comes next. No, I think they still have to very much be worried about the Big Ten and each other and what comes next.
You know what, Paul, a question for you. I do think that there are probably a few little brush fires, not even brush fires, yes. There's a couple of people where, unfortunately, I know it's dry, and I'm not trying to make light of it, but somebody out there at any time can toss a cigarette off the road. And it's that volatile, but it's just not. We don't know where it is. Notre Dame's the key. The Big Ten contract's the key, which also could have an impact with Notre Dame. And that's really, those two things could explode everything. The Big Ten's going to have a new contract. No question. The question is it going to be $1 billion, $1.25 billion? Who's going to be a part of it in that? The Notre Dame thing then kickstarts the next line of whatever.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's chaos or, okay, that's about it. Here's a question for you, Paul, to close out the hour as well. If, in fact, it was your decision, would you want Florida State, who's under that long grant of rights in the ACC with others, to join the SEC or stay in the ACC? And I'm going to stay in the ACC the way it is now. And that's your question.
I'll say this. Would you like to stay working at McDonald's or work for Goldman Sachs?
There you go.
I mean, to me, I think that
they're not McDonald's, are they? Versus Goldman Sachs.
But isn't Florida State one of the reasons why the ACC is not Goldman Sachs?
Right now, yeah. I mean, it is, but that's also the problem. Everywhere, like USC, Texas, all that.
I agree.
Everywhere. But if you had the opportunity to get out of a bad deal and go join a new one, then yes. But yeah, Florida State's certainly, maybe that you say that, they're the biggest part of the problem.
Yes.
And it's even worse. As opposed to completely clandestine, shady leadership, they've had inept leadership. Like, it's completely inept. It's not like we're doing this and we're trying to move all these things. They're not behind the scenes moving pieces. They're just running face first into the wall.
Yeah.
So that's what's happened there.
And you wonder if the Big Ten doesn't start having, they're going to always be fine. But if they don't have more than just Ohio State be the one team that goes to a national championship and win it, how does that eventually kind of eat away at them?
That's the expanded playoff.
Yeah. But
they're going to have like 5 teams in that bad boy.
For the chat room, my McDonald's and Goldman Sachs was, the SEC is Goldman Sachs. The ACC is McDonald's right now.
You have to explain that?
Well, people have been like, FSU's Lehman Brothers, which they kind of maybe are. But
Lehman Brothers.
But yeah.
All right, we have Grayson coming up the next segment. Nathan Brown, this is a good one. It's just sad that Rutgers is worth more than UW, Oregon, Baylor, Brigham Young, or others. Because, again, we've discussed that. They're in the Big Ten. They're safe, at least for now.
Yeah, I mean, they are and they aren't, right? I mean, they are technically worth more based on the check that they cash, but, there's other ways you could say, no, they're not. But, yeah, I mean, that was fortuitous timing for Rutgers, was it not? You look back on Maryland and Rutgers and that expansion that, I don't know, I can't even recall because it's been so long, and I don't even remember what I was saying back then about those teams and that whole deal. But you look back on that now, man, the book about expansion, whenever it settles into whatever it is, and I'm sure like Bruce Feldman will probably write that, but whatever that book is, and it's going to have, going all the way back to, it's going to have to cover the Big 12's history, right? You got to start then all the moving parts because you got A&M going to the SEC, and you got Mizzou going to the SEC, and Nebraska going to the Big Ten, and all that came with that, and then what that turned into, the Big East, the contract talks that are going on right now, everything that's led to that and led to whatever comes after. I mean, it's going to be, you can do like an HBO miniseries on the college football realignment wars. You know what I mean? Like, it's fascinating. It's Game of Thrones is what it is.
I cast it last week.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, it's basically Game of Thrones without the cool battles, but you could argue like the battles sort of happen on the field, even though they're not as clearly related, obviously.
I had Bob Odenkirk as Greg Sankey.
I would like the Big 12 if they did battle on the field, and I do like that Bob Odenkirk as Greg Sankey. I would take the Big 12 as well in that battle on the field with the Pac-12, but that would be an interesting way to decide who survives. Let's throw them out there and have them play a series, in an alternative universe.
When we come back, Grayson Grundhafer, who was all over the commitment and then reaffirming the commitment of Austin Novosad and has been all over that. He's going to join us. Camp for Baylor starts tomorrow, so he's going to be at that. Craig's going to leave a little bit earlier tomorrow to go watch some of that as well. So Grayson's going to come on today, kind of preview that, what he wants to see, what he needs to see, what he expects to see next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Boozers Jewelers, I am in the throes of wedding planning now, and that is going to be 10 months from now, and there's a lot of different things you have to do. But the first thing you have to do before you get to the wedding planning is you got to propose. You got to get the ring. So where did I go to get my ring to propose to Amanda, my lovely fiance? I went to Boozers, and I had, on a scale of 1 to 10 of knowledge of rings, I was at a -1. I did not know anything about rings. I never wanted to know anything about rings. I never read about rings. I'd been to the store before when we did remotes there. I saw what they did, but it didn't stay with registered me because I thought, maybe I never need one of these. But when I needed one, I went to Brad, and Amanda had different lists of things that she liked in a ring, and she sent me all these Instagram videos. So I went and I said, hey, buddy, I need your help here. I'm getting married. I got to have a ring. And he said, here's what we'll do. We'll custom make it just for you. Right there, he took the videos, and he got there with the staff, and they looked, and they said, here we go. Here's what we're going to do. It took about 3 weeks to do. Boom, beautiful ring. She said yes. I could not be happier with the service I got from Boozers, with the quality that I got from Boozers, with the way that just straight up and down financing and pricing and all that at Boozers was absolutely fantastic. So if you are trying to get a wedding ring and you got to do it custom made, because then I know this. There's no other ring in the world like Amanda's ring. There's no other one like it. It's the only one there is. And that's what it means to say I love you to someone, to mean you're the only one like this, so this is the only ring for you. And that's what I did at Boozers, the wedding ring store, Boozers on Valley Mills Drive.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Did you know the average American pays over $500 a month for their car payment? What would you do if you didn't have to make that payment for 90 days? Where else could you use $1,500? Keep your car payments at Genco. Buy new or refinance your current vehicle and have no payments for 90 days. Take advantage of our low rates and no payments for 90 days. Only at Genco. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies insured by NCUA.
My money, my future, my credit union, Genco.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon-wrapped filet. And, of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Every week, the Bearcast, Grayson Grunehafer, Craig Smoak up in the premium section, and also a part of all of what we do every week. They record on Tuesdays and it's up. And, of course, he's the recruiting analyst for Sikkim365.com. Normally Fridays, but today, because tomorrow Baylor starts their fall workouts, and Grayson on with us today. He'll be busy tomorrow. Grayson, again, these camps open. We go, hey, how does so-and-so look? What do you think? Let's start with just Dave Aranda. What does he need to see? What are a couple of things he has to check off between now and when they open up their season?
Yeah, I think the good thing for Dave Aranda is that he feels probably really good about what they have in the trenches. On the offensive line and defensive line, I think, there's just a fundamental belief in physicality, and I think they're going to be able to have that from day one, at least up front. And I think that's great. And I think Aranda's probably really, really happy about that. But I think if you kind of look at the other positions, there's a lot of positions that have guys who just aren't quite proven yet, or they're really young, or the mixture of the two. So I really think fall camp for Dave Aranda is going to be about, kind of looking at these young guys and trying to figure out, okay, where does this guy fit in best? What can we do with this guy? What is he good at? What is he not good at? And I think that will allow him to probably, get a better picture for what this team is going to be like, and also be able to put, those young guys in situations to succeed instead of situations to fail. And I think that's going to be really, really important because you look at various positions, whether it's wide receiver or safety or even cornerback, there's a lot of young guys. And so I think it's going to be important that he kind of is able to narrow it down a little bit, find the guys that he can trust, and then put them in positions to succeed.
How healthy do you think the wide receiver core will be as it starts camp? 100%, or are there still some guys that might be working back from stuff?
I mean, very healthy from what I can tell. I think Hal Presley was dealing with the injury that he sustained during spring ball, and he's back now. So I don't think there's going to be much, caution with him. Gavin Holmes has had a lot of injuries in his career, but he was fine during spring ball as well. Jalen Ellis, Javon Gibson both dealt with hamstring injuries during spring, so they really need to just, get through those injuries, and I think they are past those. And they need both those guys to be 100% because in order for you to get the best out of these young guys, they really need to be pushed. And I think all these guys need to be pushed, and all these guys need to get reps on the field. And I think if, Hal had sustained that injury during fall camp, it would have been a lot harder for him to crack the starting lineup. But because, he's back now he's got an opportunity to kind of make up some ground. And I think that's going to be an area to really focus on is, if you pick up a lingering injury during fall camp, a lot of times it's hard to get back to 100% before the season starts, and it's hard to really show what you can do. So hopefully they remain healthy. But for now, I think this can be a pretty healthy group going into the fall.
Last year, Grayson, even though there was a quarterback competition, it ultimately did feel like Gary Bohannon's team, once things got kind of underway and he was named the starter. Does this feel like Blake Shapin's team to you already?
Yeah, in a different way, I think, Craig. I think that what we saw from Gary was more of this, he's a true leader on this team. He's been here forever. He's been here through, some tough seasons, but he's kind of rallied to this point. He finally got his chance, and everyone was so excited for him. Everyone was, just happy because he's such a good guy, a guy that works, harder than anyone else. And I think with Shapin, it's a little bit different because, Shapin hasn't been at Baylor for, an insane amount of time. He hasn't, waited forever to get his chance. But the part where I think everyone has bought in is the talent and kind of what he can bring to the table on the football field. And I think when you have a guy like that, there's this automatic confidence boost, with the entire team. So I think that's the area where I think it's become his team is that everyone has seen him do it on the field. And Dave Aranda mentioned this. He's becoming a better leader. So I'm not saying he's not a good leader, but I think because he's still a little bit younger, I don't think he's gotten to the point where it's like every guy knows that this is 100% Blake Shapin's team. He's the top leader on the totem pole. Whereas I thought last year, there were some points where I think you could say that Gary might have been, one of, if not the top leader on the team. I'm not sure that Shapin's there yet, but his play on the field and what he brings to this team with his arm talent is definitely something that everyone on the team recognizes, and I think they'll rally behind that.
The Gary Bohannon was a leader who had it in his neck. And when you compare what he had, his was, I'll run over you. I'll lead you by, I'll run over the next guy to pick up a first down. Not that Blake can't run around somebody or give somebody a juke, but his is in a different way, isn't it, Grayson? It's more of just the fact that he has all of the tools, so to speak, in his repertoire.
Yeah, and I think that talent that Blake has, it is very different than the talent that Gary has. So I think Blake is more like, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to throw for 500 yards and there's nothing you can do about it. You know what I mean? It's more that swagger that, like, I'm going to make a play in the most, big moments. I'm going to make the throw that I need to make, and there's nothing you can do about it. Whereas with Gary, it was more like, I'm just going to wear you down. You know what I mean? I'm going to grind out drives. I'm going to complete the tough passes. I'm going to get first down after first down. And Shapin is just a little bit different in that it's more, I'm going to stand in the pocket and I'm going to throw it 50 yards downfield, and I believe that I can make any throw on the field. And I think that's big as well.
There's a story that, Paul, you and I heard, that when Jeff Grimes was at Brigham Young, Zach Wilson one time in a game was told not to make a certain throw. And it was between a corner and a safety, like a hole.
A hole in the cover two.
In the cover two. And just for kicks, and because he had the arm to do it, he made that throw early in the game, came to the sideline, and what was the reaction?
Is it okay to get that off my chest? You got it. You did it.
Yeah. Because he wanted to prove that he could do it, even though he knew he probably shouldn't. And Shapin maybe has that kind of thing in him. So are we going to see a guy that can make that kind of throw, or try to sometimes throw a ball through a BB through a keyhole and put up with a couple of turnovers extra that we didn't see too much, although Bohannon threw the deadly turnover against TCU?
Yeah, I think that Gary did have some turnover problems that were masked a little bit by the fact that they were able to turn around and run the ball a ton. But I felt like in kind of their, a lot of their bigger games, he did have some turnover issues, and he ran into some problems with that. And that's okay. That happens at times. But I think for Blake, it's going to be a little bit different, because I think he's going to throw the ball more, which is naturally going to lead to probably more turnovers than Gary had. Gary didn't throw the ball a ton. So, those numbers are kind of restricted a little bit, both in the touchdown department, but also in the turnover department. And so I think for Blake, yeah, he will turn it over more, but I think you're going to see more explosive plays. You're going to see far more yards, passing yards from this team. You're going to see far more passing touchdowns from this team as well. And yeah, you might have to put up with, maybe 3 or 4 more interceptions than what Gary had a year ago. But I think it's more of a volume thing than it is really, just he's being super irresponsible with the ball. But I will say, there were times last year where Blake did try to make too many tough throws, and they did almost lead to turnovers, like in the Texas Tech game and in the Kansas State game. So he does need to get that corrected. But again, he was a redshirt freshman last year. So, he still had some, a little bit of ways development-wise to go.
Well, and Grayson, look, the offense is going to look, I wouldn't say completely different, but I would say, substantially different than it would because they're going to do different things than they will. Like the numbers might balance out in a different way. They're probably going to have more passing yards and less rushing yards, but that doesn't mean that they're all of a sudden a worse rushing team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think as a whole, this offense is going to be far better. I think they're going to score more points. I think they're going to be far more explosive, which is an area that you want in any offense in college football. And it really hurt this team a year ago was the fact that they just did not hit on a ton of explosive plays. I think they're going to get back to that and be able to, create 50-yard touchdowns instead of just, trying to churn out long drives, which is really tough. It is really tough in college football to just get, 10 yards at a time. At times that's good, but then other times it just becomes very difficult to consistently do that. You have to have some explosive plays. So I think you'll see that from Shapin, and you're exactly right. They might be just as good on the ground, but I don't think anyone on this team is going to have 1,600 rushing yards like Abram Smith did I just think it's going to be a little bit different the way it's made. But overall, I think this offense is going to be quite a bit better than it was a year ago.
Grayson, what do you think Dallas Baker's provided for the wide receivers group thus far?
Yeah, I think that he's created a level of excitement, and I think that's a big deal for a young group. I think he's ended up being a perfect hire, and everyone that I've kind of talked to or people that have talked about Dallas Baker, it's just that, he's really relating to the players extremely well and in a way that makes them excited. You know what I mean? And I think that's key when you're dealing with the fact that you have, 5 freshmen and 4 sophomores. You're really trying to balance things out between being a great technical coach while also being able to be like, come here, like you made a mistake. Like, let's talk it through. It's going to be all right. Let's get back. Let's rerun it. Right. And, a lot of times for young guys, it's hard to forget bad plays, but the best players forget about them quickly and make it up with the next play. And I think Dallas Baker's done a great job with that. And I think the young guys are going to respond really well to his coaching. And in my opinion, that group is only going to get better as the season goes on. Lots of young guys, but a lot of talent there and a lot of guys who are ready to be developed and ready to grow in their game.
I don't know how much time has been spent on wondering about Squirrel Williams, Craig Williams, and his play time. And obviously it appears as if he's ready to have a breakout year. And you'd love to see what he did against Iowa State a couple of years ago, and that's the norm. I know Travis Roeder is just gushing over what he thinks Squirrel might do. And I know we all know what he can do in a lot of ways if healthy. But how many touches a game does he get? How do you allow him to possibly be more of an in-between-the-tackles guy with the wide zone, but also monitor his touches?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know Travis has talked about there's no way he's not going to get 20 touches a game. And for me, I just don't know that would be wise. I mean, Squirrel is listed at 169 pounds. Mm-hmm. And I love Squirrel. What he brings to the table is something that they don't have at the running back position. He's very unique, and he runs the ball like a power back, even though he's so shifty and so quick and fast as well. So they're going to need to give him carries, but I think they are going to restrict him a little bit. And in my opinion, that's fine because I think Tate McWilliams is fantastic. I think he's going to be very, very good. I don't think he's getting enough recognition, and I don't think people are talking about him quite enough because what I saw in the spring game was a guy that was consistently dragging players 3 yards after contact, and that is extremely important in this offense. We saw Abram Smith get, who knows, it feels like hundreds of first downs when he was hit 3 yards short of the first down marker and still found a way to get a first down. And I think Tay can bring that to the table. So I think both of them are going to get a significant amount of carries, but I don't see Craig getting more than maybe, I would say probably like 12, 13 carries a game. He might get a couple catches out of that, so maybe 15 touches. And then I think Tate McWilliams will probably get around 10, 12 touches, and then maybe someone else will be able to mix in a little bit in there as well. But in the games that I think they're, beating teams pretty bad, I don't think Squirrel will get as many touches as he will in those games when they really, really need him to get the football. And overall, this is his year to break out. They're going to give him every opportunity to do that. But I hope they're also pretty mindful about the fact that, they need him later in the year more than they do, game 1 against Albany.
Who's going to push the pile and get a first down in a big moment? Who's the first running back that's going to do that, who can do that during the camp in August, and then eventually when the games matter, when they start in September? That number you mentioned, 12 or 13, 12 is kind of the number that rings a bell, I think, when I asked that question myself among those who might know. So good stuff with that. Grayson, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. See you tomorrow at practice.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Grayson Grunhaver, Sikkim 365, recruiting analyst, and who probably maybe can now wake up in the morning without worrying about what texts are coming in over Austin Novosad.
Yeah, I'm sure that's nice. I'm sure that's a nice feeling because that was a big topic for quite a while.
Months,
and, yeah. And now it's been settled as of this week, so that's good. And glad we're moving forward towards football, actual football. I mean, I love talking expansion and realignment and all that jazz, but it will be good to be out there. It'd be better to be some other places. Like I'd love to be in like Southern California this time of year versus, being in Texas. So it'll be sweltering out there tomorrow, but it'll still be nice to just get out on the grass and see those guys getting underway and getting some practices going and the countdown to the season. I mean, it's really we're August 4th right now, so we're less than a month away, and that's exciting. I mean, we've had a long, long wait, even though college football has provided plenty to keep us entertained throughout that time. I am looking forward to seeing actual football.
That's why I'm glad we are able to just kind of talk a little bit about who's in the top 3 to 4 or 5, even though, again, there's only about 5 or 6 teams you could throw up in the air, and 4 or 5 of them they're all the same, just a matter of the order. I said yesterday, I'm not so sure I'm ready for actually the season. No, I am. I am. I'm looking forward to still a couple of weekends before it really starts, but I am. I'm ready to go. It's a great time, and I think it will also help calm down some of the other extracurricular outside noise that's important surrounding college football. It's 4:25. When we come back, we're going to dip out to California, hear from our great friend Ricky Spagnola on the Cowboys at training camp. Anthony Barr, as he passed his physical, he was the one that we discussed yesterday, the veteran who they signed. Sick on 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco, where they have a 48-foot walk-in humidor that's loaded up with the great brands of cigars. I got a call earlier today, from my oldest brother, Robert. He and my second oldest brother, Mike, are going to sit out on his back porch. He has a beautiful place in Clearwater, Florida, and smoke a couple of cigars, have a drink, and toast Craig's grandfather, my father, who passed away in 2015. It's his birthday today. It would have been his birthday today. So they will do that. And they're going to smoke the EP Carrillo. That's their favorite. It could be Rocky Patel, Romeo and Julieta, Ashton, Macanudo, Padron, Cohiba. What you like, whatever cigar that you like, whether it's the taste, whether it's the aroma, whatever it might be, they have it inside their 48-foot walk-in humidor at Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center, Valley Mills in Waco.
You know that guy that walks around with pants that are just a little too short, and he's wearing brand new loafers, but no socks? Then he crosses his legs right across from you, and you have to look at his bare ankles. Ugh. Well, that's what it's like to drive your truck around without any step bars. Hi, Jay from Pickup Outfitters here to talk about one of the most common forms of truck nudity, driving around without any step bars, a rampant problem in Central Texas. Now, step bars do have their functional benefits. They save wear and tear on your back and your knees. They make it easy for your wife and your children to get in and out of your truck. But mostly, having step bars on your truck is just the decent thing to do. No one wants to look at your bare rocker panels. So help us end truck nudity and put some step bars on that truck. We have some great specials on either the black or the stainless steel chrome look. Check it out at createacommotion.com/steps. Don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution, and help us end truck nudity at Pickup Outfitters.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including barre, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
one size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one size fits all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. I've seen people walk in there. First of all, you have so much to show, whether necklaces, bracelets, rings. You have the watches. You have numerous great watches as well. You really have pretty much everything, don't you, when it comes to jewelry?
That's correct. Kind of a one-stop shop and all. And the fact that we have the 2 jewelers on staff, the repairs we can do, the fixing of your jewelry, and the remaking of any jewelry has really set us apart from anybody else.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Prescott on the keeper, walks in, touchdown, Dallas.
It's time for our weekly segment with Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com. Brought to you by the First National Bank of Central Texas, with 5 locations to serve you.
TFNB, your bank for life. Community efforts and impact, charity champions program, helping those who help others, and also the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. TFNB, your bank for life, is our 365 Sports title sponsor on YouTube. Great to have Jason Lavender and his great staff as a part of our show. Now, Levi Caraway, Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, and Garrett Ross are here behind the scenes in the studio. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina here on the set, and I'm David Smoak, and we appreciate everybody for being a part of the show whenever you can. We'll have Mickey here in just a second. Now, here's an interesting question about the SEC, that whenever Texas and Oklahoma moved to the SEC, and it's been just over a year since that happened, I get the impression that a lot of people, doesn't mean they're right or wrong, don't think either one will have that much success in the SEC, and I disagree. Now, you go, well, wait a minute. Texas hasn't had success in 12 years in the Big 10 or Big 12. You're right. But I'm not saying that when they move to the SEC that continues. I don't know. I'm not going for the hype. I think Oklahoma is one of the top 3 to 5 blue bloods in the history of college football. They're always going to be that way. That doesn't mean they won't have their ups and downs. Everybody does. But I think they're going to be a little more successful than a lot of people realize when it comes to the SEC. The SEC is top-heavy. They're very, very good, and at times they're pretty deep. But I do think that both those programs will be fine in the SEC. Fine enough to win championships. I don't know if that happens.
I mean, I feel confident about both being able to be as competitive as they have been. For the most part, I do think that you're just naturally going to take a little bit of a step down. I mean, for one, Oklahoma's not winning like 7 straight conference championships ever again. That's never going to happen for them ever again. And I feel confident in saying that, at least at a Power 5, Power 2 level, that they will never win, well, I need to actually look at the record, but it just seems like it was like 7 in a row. But those days are over, and they're fine with that, because they've been there, done that. They're excited about the road trips. They're going to make more money and all that. I mean, I do think that there's going to be an adjustment period, however. What is success? Well, success here as of late has been losing maybe one, in a bad year, 2 games, right? And not making the playoff. That's like a horrific year. Well, to get used to it, because if the playoff stays as it is, they're not going to be making it as often as they were. And they're also going to be losing more games than they were. So they could still be as successful and end up in the same place in an era of an expanded playoff and with a tougher conference. So, yeah, I think they're going to be about what they've been. I just think that there's going to be some of that stuff that just takes a little bit of a knock. Like, you're going to lose 3 or 4 games a year, whereas you were used to losing 1 or 2. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And that's fine because you're playing a tougher schedule, and that's just how it all kind of works out. But you might only win 1 SEC title every few years, maybe, versus winning like 6 in a row in the Big 12. Like those days are over. So, yeah, you can still have success, but it's just going to be a different type of success versus what you were used to. I think for Texas, that's a little bit more interesting. And yet I feel like they know what they're getting themselves into, and they've got the backing. And they seem to have a good kind of culture being built right now. We'll see. I'm still kind of out halfway on Sarkisian and whether or not he's going to be the guy for these next several years. This year's really going to say a lot. But I think that they know how to keep their heads above water. And if they just kind of do, like every few years they win a Sugar Bowl, how is that all that really different from what they've been doing?
Yep, I agree. It's something we'll get into. And I appreciate, again, for those of you who want to give us your opinion on the text line. You can, 254-339-1122 in the chat room. Mickey Spagnola joins us from Oxnard, California. Cowboys are a week into this thing. And of course, just around the corner, there'll actually be preseason games, as we mentioned, the game that's going on in Canton, Ohio. So, Mickey, Anthony Barr, that makes sense, I guess. It's a cheap deal. No risks there. Has he passed his physical?
I was just double checking because when I left the practice field or I should say the Dak Prescott press conference about 35 minutes ago, we were still awaiting official word. So I'll keep checking while we're talking. But we had been waiting for the physical to be completed, or at least to get the results.
Mickey, what do you think his role will be overall? Kind of like Keanu Neal last year?
No, not necessarily. Think about this, and this was kind of sobering. I guess it was on Tuesday and maybe again today with Jabril Cox. They expected, after a couple padded practices, he probably would have a little bit of soreness in the knee that he had his ACL repaired. So he's not in practice. And you're looking out there at the linebacker group, and you're looking at Micah Parsons and Leighton Vander Esch, and so bringing him in, if they want to go base defense and play a true 4-3 without Jaron Kearse on the field as the hybrid safety / linebacker, you really needed another guy, not knowing what Jabril Cox is going to be. So with Anthony Barr coming in, you got somebody that can play on the strong side. Vander Esch is in the middle, and Micah Parsons on the weak side. The other thing that it does is if you're in nickel and you want to use two linebackers, but you want to put Micah Parsons as a pass rushing defensive end, well, you need another linebacker. So I think Anthony Barr fits in there. I think it's just another inexpensive toy for Dan Quinn to play with that they can use kind of multiple combinations of linebackers out there as needed and match up with the team you're getting ready to play.
Mickey, with Dan Quinn, speaking of which, who had an incredible impact on them last year. They forced turnovers. They were really good. San Francisco was able to kind of just grind on them and just physically took Dallas to task in the playoff game. But, you see a guy like that and what his team does, his side of the ball does. Is it – and then you expect it to get better. Does it always – does that mean it will get better? Will the defense actually improve again?
Yeah, it needs to get better. They know it. He knows it. They need to take the next step. So, number one, you're going to be in the same – the majority of these guys are going to be in the same system 2 years in a row. And if you think about it, that really hasn't happened for the Cowboys in a couple of years, because even though Rod Marinelli was, quote unquote, the defensive coordinator, he was passing off some of the game day play calling to somebody else. Right. And so, this will be the first time, in at least 3 years that it'll be the same guy, the same defense, the same scheme. And I think that helps. I think number two, I know they lost Randy Gregory, but I think they got maybe a nice rotation over there with giving guys some opportunities, some young guys, some newcomers. And then you get Neville Gallimore back. Remember, he only played a handful of games last year after he suffered the elbow injury in the preseason game, and he really didn't play until maybe the last month of the season. So I think that's a plus. It's a plus that DeMarcus Lawrence, who ended up fracturing his fifth metatarsal the week after the first game of the season during practice, And, he only played, I think he got back and maybe played 6-7 games. And, when you come back after missing that many games in a row, it takes 2 games to get back in the swing of things. So you got him healthy. And while Micah Parsons had a great year, he was still a rookie, so there was room to grow there. And not towards the end of the year did they, get Vander Esch some snaps, and you saw his production picked up. So, yeah, I think there's room for this team defense to grow. And, by the way, it needs to grow. And they need to do a better job stopping the run. You mentioned the San Francisco game because they didn't do a very good job of that in that game.
Mickey, wide receiver-wise, the panic button hasn't been hit by the organization, but it has by the fans. But what are you seeing from the guys working with Dak Prescott that get increased reps, like Semi Fehoko, Noah Brown? I've heard some good things about. Those are the guys that they're going to rely on if they don't go and sign a veteran.
Well, the first guy, and remember, at some point, Michael Gallup's going to come back. So basically, your question probably pertains to the first month of the season because I think he'll miss a few games. Same thing with James Washington. They've got to kind of monitor that and figure out when they think those guys can get back. So far, Jalen Tolbert, to me, looked like, at least the first month of the season, if they're missing Michael Gallup, that he's the third receiver. He continues to show progress every day. And of late, Dennis Houston has stepped up and actually taken reps with the first team. It's been CD, Jalen Tolbert, and Dennis Houston. And I know for fans that doesn't sound great, right? That doesn't sound like a big threat. But as Dak Prescott pointed out, and he goes, I'm the poster child for it. Sometimes guys just need an opportunity, and you might get something surprising. So they got a ways to go to work on it. You mentioned Noah Brown. Once again, I think he dropped some weight. Can he stay healthy? He's looked good in these practices. TJ Vasher has moments in these practices. And then we'll see if they get anything out of Devontae Turpin. They're looking at him as a punt returner, but maybe they can get him into some 9 routes with his speed as a wide receiver.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com with us on Sick'em 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Mickey, one more thing around the corner. Eventually they will start to play preseason games, and we know how that breaks down. Is this year any different than any other years, or is this a kind of a better year to maybe see more from the preseason than in the past because of the questions they have and the new names or some that are gone?
Yeah, I'm sort of afraid from just kind of the chatter we're hearing and how Mike McCarthy's answering questions, you might see less in those preseason games. I mean, less from your veteran players. You're going to see a lot of these young guys. I think what they're going to look at, David, is the practices with the first 2 teams. They're going to Denver early, practice against the Broncos on a Thursday. They're going to the Chargers early and going to have 2 practices against them before they play the game. And I think your veteran guys may get more work in those practices than they do in the preseason games. I don't think you're going to see Zeke touch the ball in any of those 3 preseason games. I would imagine Dak, if he gets anything, it'll be a series here or a series there, but that's it. Yeah, and as you mentioned, it's only 3. This is the first year they've only had 3 preseason games. Last year they had the extra one with the Hall of Fame game. So it's going to be an opportunity for more young guys to step up, or if they can step up and say, hey, I belong on this team. And I don't know if there will be that dress rehearsal. I sort of doubt it. But again, with only 3 preseason games, they will have 2 weeks to prepare for the season opener since there's not that 4th one.
Thank you, Mickey. Appreciate your time. Mickey Spagnola with us. Oxnard, California. Cowboys training camp is going on right now, and, of course, NFL camps all over the place.
By the way, Mickey's column colleague, Nick Eatman, over at DallasCowboys.com, Anthony Barr officially signed. He's on the PUP list to start. So
that's why I asked, just curious about, it's a great thing. It's a good name. Injured or not, can he play? Can he practice? And he's not the only one. That's part of the deal. But, again, a name. I think people are looking at the name of who he was 10 or 11 years ago out of UCLA, whether or not who he is today. But they have to sign somebody. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Craig. And Off the Radar is next.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They have a lot of great deals going on right now over at Richard Carr. They are the people that you can count on to not only get a great deal on either a new or pre-owned vehicle, but to also get great customer service, as well as I can attest, having had my car over there a couple of times in the last, I guess it's been 6 months or so. Richard Carr has hooked me up and helped me out with great customer service when I've needed it. Well, don't wait any longer. If you are in the market for a new car or truck, they are arriving weekly at Richard Carr. Come by or log on to richardcarr.com to view their in-stock inventory, or cut in line by getting your name on their inbound vehicle list to reserve a brand new Buick GMC or Cadillac before anyone else. The inbound vehicle list, if you are in the market for a new car, it's basically, like I just said, it's getting your name in line. It's getting your place in line so that when your time comes, you're up next to get that car, truck, or SUV when it arrives. So it's ensuring you get it as quickly as possible. But if you need a car today, you're not looking to buy new. If you're looking to buy new, get on that inbound vehicle list, get the details set up, and then when that arrives, boom, you're done and you're all hooked up. But if you're looking to get into a car today and not have to wait, well, Richard Carr has trucks on the lot, over 95 quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock. All their pre-owned vehicles go through a 172-point inspection. Plus, you can get top dollar on your trade with dozens of lending options. Richard Carr says yes to loans when others say no. If you want to drive your current car longer, they've got award-winning service and collision repair, which I can attest to and did at the very beginning. They are the dealer you can count on for superior service for the life of your car. For 23 years in Central Texas, Richard Carr has built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs in the area. They are run by proud Wacoans and proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
TFNB, your bank for life, is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new 3 Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning 3 Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans and all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. It's a segment where Tuesdays and Thursdays we'll take a look at some stories that we might not otherwise get to. Hence the name Off the Radar. Might not be totally off the radar in terms of it's not going to be some, random sport like Frisbee golf headlines and things like that. But mostly stuff that we just would not otherwise sit down and discuss all of that much. Now, this is one that I've kind of been keeping updated in this segment because it hasn't necessarily needed a daily update, but it is something that does hit close to home because she played her college basketball in Waco, Texas, and for the Baylor Bears, and that is one Brittney Griner, who has been locked up in Russia for the past several months after some vape cartridges with THC were found in her luggage once she arrived in Russia. There's been a lot of debate, a lot of angry yelling on the part of her supporters, a lot of just non-response, I think, on the part of the Russians in some cases, and just a lot of talk about, what this means and how long she's going to be there and everything like that. But she's been having these hearings as of late, and today the Russian court came back with their sentence. They have sentenced Brittney Griner to 9 years in prison for having a couple of THC cartridges. That is the conclusion so far as it sits right now. Obviously, there will be some other things that occur. The U.S. isn't just going to be like, okay, see you later. They're obviously going to be, I'm sure they've been on the phone today burning up those lines. But she was arrested back on February 17th, as I mentioned, with some cannabis or THC cartridges is what the charges were. And she is, taking it probably, I'm sure, about as well as anybody would, being locked up in Russia for the last several months and now getting the word today that you're going to be locked up for 9 years potentially. But the judge, Anna Sotnikova, said she had found that Griner intentionally broke the law and also fined her $1 million rubles, which is worth, how much do you think $1 million rubles is worth?
$500,000.
I didn't say Google it, Paul. How much do you think $1 million rubles is worth?
I don't know, $250,000.
$16,700.
Okay,
yeah, so she's been fined. It sounds like you find $1 million rubles, like, oh no, what I'm going to do? It's $16,700. It's still not chump change, but Sotnikova said, according to ESPN, Griner has the time she served in custody since her arrest would count toward the sentence. So, oh yay, like 6 months off of my 9-year sentence here. But, there's more. She had a very emotional reaction, as anybody would. I don't know that she actually understood it necessarily. I don't know what the setup was there as far as like English and Russian and kind of like her knowledge of the Russian legal system and what a sentence actually means. But on paper, 9-year sentence, the maximum was 10 under the charges that she had faced. Prosecutors had asked for 9.5, and they settled on 9. So there you go.
Well, she's not going to do 9 years. You would think that the U.S. is going to bring her back. And Paul Whelan, who's a U.S. government official who's been over there and soldier who's been over there for quite some time as well. We already got one prisoner exchange earlier this year done. Hopefully this gets Brittney and Paul Whelan back now that she has to be sentenced, which is kind of silly because to the Russians, she has to be sentenced so that they can use that as a bargaining chip of, we've got this person in prison for 9 years. You just want us to give him back when, what she did didn't hurt anybody at all. She broke a law in Russia, but the Russian legal system is a farce anyway. And so they are using that 9-year penalty as, here, look, we're giving you a person who would be in prison for 9 years in our country. Yeah, you have to give us something back. So it just adds a little more weight to the trade, and we'll see what happens and how long it takes for that to get done. But
it's part of the process, as coaches say, when they're building a team, trying to build a team back from not being very good. They had to go through the charges. They had to go through the trial. They had to go through the sentencing. Now it's the next step of whatever they do.
Yes, and I will say this, and this is, if this goes viral, fine. If you would like WNBA players not to have to go to Russia to make more money, go buy some damn tickets and watch them on TV.
Real.
Make their TV ratings better. Buy some tickets.
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
Yes, because it's almost like, no, we should just give them more money. It's a supply and demand thing, and they're already being funded by the NBA. If the sport is that popular and ESPN is doing everything they can along with the WNBA to make it that way, for them not to need to go overseas, then yes, pay them more based on supply and demand, but not just give them money to keep them from playing overseas.
And that's if you are one of these people who say, why do we have to I saw a tweet about this of like, why do they go over there? Why do they do this?
Yeah,
they're underpaid. Well, here's the thing: if it means that much to you, you have to buy some season tickets. And Bill Burr, the comedian, has a great special out right now where he says, look, feminism has failed the WNBA. He is completely right on that because they can, talk about it all day long, but, there's nobody in the seats. So you got to buy those tickets.
I would still love to go to Blockbuster Video on a Friday night and just look around, but guess what? There wasn't the money for it, and it's not in existence anymore. So, I would love for Brittney Griner to not have to go play in Russia to make some extra money, but there's just not the money in the WNBA for it. And I understand how much the NBA makes, but that's not how it works. It's not just, the boys make it, so the girls should make it. And I see that argument a lot on Twitter. It's unfortunate that the story about Brittney turns into that. And that's a separate thing, quite frankly. I know it's attached loosely because that's why she was there, but that's not why this story is existing, though.
Yeah. Because
of their salaries. Like that, it's not why she got arrested and, now there's this whole to-do about it. But, yeah.
She got arrested because Russia is a terrible place to be. And they're run by a terrible leader.
Wait a minute, but she got arrested because Russia's a terrible place to be.
And they have terrible laws.
But those are their laws. I'm not defending them, but those are their laws.
Oh yeah, and look, she stepped in it. I mean, she's in. Well, yeah, she's in this of her own volition.
She stepped in it.
But yeah, she stepped in it. But and again, anybody who says she's going to do her time and she deserves it, all right, you're entitled to your opinion. But imagine if that's you in any foreign country, not Russia.
Or family member.
It happens. Somebody makes a mistake and you think, okay. And look, in this country, we have people doing a long time for weed as well that don't deserve to be there. So maybe let's use this as an example to do some stuff better.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go with this. People are going to use this politically. People are going to use this professionally and all that. Bottom line is Brittney Griner's in a really crappy situation. You can place the blame where you want. Certainly some of it belongs on her. What we do not know is how intentional any of those actions were. I mean, I seem to be of the belief, based on nothing other than just my own intuition, that there's probably a good chance that she tried to sneak in a couple cartridges because she was going to be in Russia for a few months and wanted to get high and just relax a little bit, not thinking that it would turn into this, and it turned into this. Now, is there a chance that somebody snuck a little, wrapped up mailbox thing into her, the brown, box that you get in the mail from UPS? Is there a chance somebody snuck that in and had her information on it and, Sure, I guess. That's really hard to believe, though, that Russia was that calculated, as smart and as much credit as you want to give them. That's like Brittney Griner's coming over here and we're going to, that just seems pretty far-fetched to me. But regardless of all of that, I hate this for her. I hate this for her family and her friends. And that seems like a lot. 9 years for what happened. Their laws are not. So hopefully something can be done. I know that President Joe Biden commented on it, and other politicians have as well. They have pledged to continue, looking into getting her immediate release, calling it unacceptable, and they will work tirelessly and pursue every avenue for not only her but also Paul Whelan. So we will see on that regard. But today, Brittney Griner was sentenced to 9 years. So we will see where that goes. One other women's basketball note while we're talking sort of loosely women's basketball, but Paige Bueckers, UConn women's star, will miss the entire 22-23 season. Tore her ACL. She is somebody that we're going to be seeing in the WNBA here relatively soon, but a massive star since her high school days in women's basketball circles. She only played in 17 games a year ago because she was injured. And during that time, averaged nearly 15 points, 4 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals nearly a game. I mean, she's an incredible player. But, yeah, tore her ACL, so she is now out for the entire year for the UConn
Missed a
women's
lot of
team.
last year because of an injury, came back near the end of the year, almost led them to the national championship. They did go. I think they played in the national championship game, did they not?
Yes, they lost to South Carolina.
Lost to South Carolina, yep.
Yep, so there you go with that as well. Also, going to Deshaun Watson, the latest update on that. Former New Jersey Attorney General Peter Harvey has been selected to hear the appeal of Deshaun Watson's decision. That's who was selected by Roger Goodell. The NFL wants a harsher punishment than the 6-game suspension that was originally ruled by disciplinary officer Sue L. Robinson on Monday. Goodell, thanks to the CBA, could consider the appeal himself, but he decided to instead appoint someone else to hear that. So Jake Trotter of ESPN reports the NFL is looking for an indefinite suspension that would be a minimum of 1 year, a monetary fine, and treatment that Deshaun Watson would have to undergo. So there's the latest step in what will be the appeal of the Deshaun Watson suspension. But that's interesting. I mean, they're wanting to go a lot more hardcore than what was handed down by Judge Robinson.
Is this going to make Roger Goodell the good guy?
It shouldn't.
Depends on who you, I guess, are asking, I suppose.
Because we know how he's been inconsistent, erratic with some of his decisions, and even for me, I don't understand some of them. I sometimes think that are these big, massive fines and suspensions. I'm like, damn. But again,
look, Roger,
he's going to look like the good guy if he gets more suspension, right, and a fine because he's trying to. Is this the NFL saying we care about, again, as we talked about before, domestic violence, sexual assault, whatever else?
They like many, serve one master, and that's money. And so Deshaun, part of the reason that, you can have the owner of the Browns not up in arms about Deshaun Watson is he knows eventually it'll go away and he'll make money because of Deshaun Watson. That's what they care about. That's what Roger Goodell cares about. And this is about the image of the Shield and the fact that, you're constantly in kind of negotiations about your overall value. So he is going to do what's going to make them look the best he possibly can. But it also,
good guy.
Yeah, but it also gives him plausible, we did what we could. This is a collective bargaining agreement.
He looks like the good guy.
Yeah, so he looks like the good guy, but let's not. He looks like the good guy.
I just think that he's playing a role and he's doing what I think the court of public opinion wants him to do. Is I don't think most people, and I may be wrong, but I don't think most people really feel like Deshaun Watson got the punishment that he probably deserves. Yeah. So I think that's just kind of how most people feel, and probably Roger Goodell feels, and that's why they're saying no. We need another set of eyes on this bad boy. And he's choosing it to not be himself. So if he was in search of attention, he could very easily get it and just assign himself to hear this appeal. But instead, he's gone the other direction. So I don't think it's that. And I think, he's certainly not perfect. And I think most people realize that as well. But we will see if they decide to go a different direction with the appeal. But now we know who's going to be a part of that appeal. So elsewhere, interesting out of college football and the Pac-12, actually. The Pac-12 getting creative with helping athletes make money and doing so via Twitter. Today, they announced, they being the Pac-12, an initiative with Twitter and the NIL Marketplace Opendorse, which we just talked with Opendorse rep, what was that, yesterday or the day before, as well as sports tech startup Tempus Ex Machina. They will get together, and you will see football, men's and women's basketball players now being able to monetize their own highlights on social media during the upcoming season. Tempus Ex Machina which is partnering with the Pac-12, will give athletes a custom digital video after every game that will include their best plays and camera shots from all sorts of different angles. The players will then take that custom video, tweet it out, and Twitter's Amplify platform will give it like its pre-roll advertising, and then whatever that advertisement sold comes out to, that's how the player will then in turn make money off of their highlights.
Yeah, we call it in the biz per inquiry.
Yeah, there you go.
So, we in radio, we have the ones that's like, hey, do you, have stinky feet? Then call this number. We'll give you a pill that'll get rid of your stinky feet. And then the only reason the radio station would make money is people go, I do have stinky feet. I need these pills. And so they call up and do that. That's how it works on the internet quite a bit. And that's good, though. That's a good way, because if you're clicking on that thing a lot, and doing it, it's probably worth it for these companies.
I always do wonder, though, about some of these things that, because I don't know about that business really at all, but what's to prevent like grandpa from just clicking that bad boy like 800 times?
Well, he probably has to like sign up for the service or
so,
whatever. Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure there's a safeguard.
I'm sure there's some sort of impressions thing that if you get a ton of impressions on the video, because the ad's going to play a lot, that's good.
Right.
And then there's probably also something on that. I'm
just ignorant about that stuff. I don't know how everything works like that. But, if somebody wants to chime in.
Probably IP guards on it.
Yeah, it's probably something like that. For doing that, if the players post 2 highlights per week after a win or loss, football players who get approved for this program will get $1,250 and a potential percentage of the program's overall revenue, a source familiar with the deal told ESPN. So, Kliavkoff had a statement, hey, we're committed to pursuing the best in black. And so, I don't know. I think it's an interesting idea. We'll see how it works. It's good on the Pac-12 for being a little bit innovative. And, hearing Brett Yormark talk about being open for business, which everybody just assumes was about realignment. But in reality, it really was about just like, hey, we will do anything that makes sense to get money. So if it's a beef jerky deal, which, by the way, I finally finished off that Old Trapper from Big 12 Media Days. That was delicious. That really was.
The jerky?
Yeah, that was a really good handout at Big 12 Media Days.
I didn't get it.
You weren't there.
I gave everybody an extra bag to bring back and give to you.
Well, that's some horse hockey.
They gave us a bag that I was sitting there while I was eating it. I was like, this probably costs $32 in a gas station
or
somewhere.
at Buc-ee's.
Yeah.
I wiped out like 3 bags.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I'm telling you, I killed it, man.
You hear that? Hey, save this and we're going to tweet the video to them, Emery. Old Trapper.
Yeah.
Damn good beef jerky.
First of all, they had an incredible
Teriyaki,
setup.
baby.
There was a great setup when you walked into the main part of the stadium on the turf, and they had a great setup. And, I mean, they had it. It was almost like a kiosk at the Super Bowl where they have different type of business.
Old Trapper. My coworkers stole my beef jerky from me.
No, he wasn't there. He was busy. And we brought back some, and just some of the young kids couldn't wait for you to return from the 9-day trip to Hawaii.
Yeah, so Old Trapper, that was delicious.
Damn good,
I
man.
wish I would have gotten a second bag because it really was like a $32 bag of beef jerky. You know how expensive that stuff is, but it was good. And so, that's the type of stuff, though, that, Brett Yormark's also talking about. And so, unique idea by the Pac-12 to get involved with this. We'll see how it works, and we'll see if it spreads to other leagues as well, but that's another way to just bring in some more revenue. Weird story with TJ Finley, Auburn Tigers quarterback. He's been charged with an attempt to elude police. It's only a misdemeanor, but I'm still waiting to gather some more info here because it doesn't quite explain why he was arrested other than saying it was an attempt to elude police. Players reported today at Auburn, so this made it also a little bit more interesting, but Finley was released today from the Lee County, Alabama Detention Center. Brian Harsin, head coach at Auburn, said they were aware of the situation. They confirmed that he had already returned to the football complex, so he is back, and they will start practices tomorrow. Harsin said that he's there. He'll be here tonight. He'll practice tomorrow. We're aware of what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But his attorney, Finley's attorney, said the arrest came as a result of traffic violations that stemmed from Finley riding his scooter without a helmet, and that the charges pending against my client are the result of traffic violations and a misunderstanding, and they're in the process of being handled by the municipal court. So that when I first saw that headline, I was like, what awful timing. Like, you open camp on Friday, you're in a quarterback competition, and you get arrested? How badly could you have timed that? But you read it, it's like anything else. Don't just believe the headlines. You read it, and I'm wondering, why was he arrested? Like, I still don't know that part, but it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal.
Why don't you just give him a ticket?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Thank God he's not in Russia.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's 9 years probably for that. So, yeah, he'll get to work, get this behind him, and figure out what that was all about. But it doesn't appear as there's any, obviously huge jail time awaiting him or anything. So I'll be interested to see exactly what the issue was. But what's also interesting about this is, yes, one, he's in a quarterback competition, and practices start on Friday. Of course, he'll be competing with Zach Calzada and Holden, I don't know how to say, Jeriner, Robbie Ashford as well. But he had just signed a deal, an NIL deal with Amazon earlier this week. Yeah, that's why when I first saw that, I was like, oh, my gosh, that could be really bad. But I don't think that'll be in danger.
Here's what I would do if I were Amazon. Listen, I could have gotten my scooter helmet on Amazon.
Yeah,
I
for
forgot.
real.
But I got one in 24 hours right after I got cited for riding my scooter without a helmet.
Yeah, but that Amazon deal, by the way, he's the first college player to sign a deal with Amazon, and basically he'll have like a merch store on there, and he can sell like his own designs and things like that. So
scooter helmets.
Yeah, so scooter helmets with like his number and name or whatever. I don't know, maybe Auburn will allow him to use a little trademark as well. But yeah, certainly throw that up on the Amazon store as well. All right, just a couple more notes. This is more media related. Matthew Berry's joining NBC Sports for the fantasy football folks out there. He's going to host shows on Peacock, but he announced that he will be heading to NBC, and he's obviously one of the bigger names. Announced that just, I guess, about 3 or so hours ago. He'll debut on Thursday's edition of Football Night in America. He'll be, and that will be tonight, going into the Hall of Fame game. And then he'll appear each week on the pregame show as well as on Peacock's Sunday Football Final. We'll also have daily and weekly shows that are focused on fantasy and sports betting on Peacock as well. So.
Somehow also, Matthew Berry's a funny dude. He's really good at what he does. Real nice guy. Somehow found his way into Avengers Endgame. If you ever watched that movie, there's a scene where Tony Stark and William Hurt, they're sitting there talking, and Matthew Berry's like one of the guards, the SWAT team guards, right there, and he has a great tweet thread about it. When somebody said, "Is this you?" He's like, "Yeah, here," and he's just kind of showed what happened. But yeah, I like Matthew Berry a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's a random as hell cameo, but pretty cool. One of the biggest movies of all time, and yeah, that's great. But yeah, now he's living his dream with NBC, and you can catch him later on tonight. Jaguars Raiders, the Hall of Fame game from Canton, Ohio. That will kick off the preseason from Tom Benson Stadium, and then everybody else will get started a week from tonight. I guess I'll have like a doubleheader next Thursday, and I don't care about the preseason as far as like every detail of it. But it is getting underway with this game tonight, but the rest of the games will not start until a doubleheader next Thursday, and then after that, it's all hell breaks loose, and everybody starts playing their games, and we're off to the races, and then it's cut season.
Never understood why college football does not have some sort of a scrimmage in August against each other.
It's a great idea.
Never understood it.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and I wonder if they're not going to move towards that sooner rather than later. And then finally, just a cool little sports card note. I like to throw that in on occasion. It seems like we get one of these stories every few weeks or so, but collectibles, marketplace, when marketplace is becoming one of those terms, kind of like content that I feel like I read in every story nowadays. But Golden announced that a T206 Honus Wagner, it's always the T206 Honus Wagners that are bringing in the big bucks, was sold in a private sale, $7.25 million for the sports card, breaking the previous mark of $6.606 million, fetched for a T206 Honus Wagner card a year ago, almost exactly to today. So that card is very popular and worth a lot of money if you've got it.
There are a lot of things I would do if I had a time machine, but one of like the small little missions in the middle of it is I would go back just to tell Honus Wagner, who in his life probably, I'm sure he had an okay living being a baseball player, but it wasn't lucrative back then.
No.
To tell Honus Wagner one day, especially in his mind what $7.2 million was, is that a small little picture of you on a piece of cardboard will sell for $7.2 million. See how he reacts, get back in the time machine and leave.
Yeah, I mean, ridiculous. Yeah, just like Back to the Future. That's, you got the betting results from like the last, or from the future, and you don't bet on games.
Then I would like go back 5 years later and just see him sitting in his house going, I just think about it every day. Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why, and then one of the articles, I think, is the ESPN one, gets into like why the T206 is such a popular card. Like, it has to do with the way it was made. It has to do with, a lot of different things. It's actually very interesting, but I do get into, I do have some interest in the card world. I don't collect as often as I used to, but it is interesting when a card pops up and it's worth a lot of money. So there's the new record holder. This Honus Wagner goes for $7.25 million, and those are a few things off the radar.
Off the radar every Tuesday and Thursday, thanks to Pickup Outfitters, Jay Arrett, also to be advertising with Laura Beck for what they do as a sponsor of that particular segment. You brought up rubles. And what was it? What was a ruble? A million rubles was $16.
16 grand.
It made me want to go back. I've lived in Japan when I was a kid, 8th grade through my junior year. When I was there, the yen was around $300. It was 300 yen to a dollar. Today, the U.S. dollar is 133 yen. So it's not 1/3 kind of. That's a massive drop. But again, that's 1976, and it's 56 years later?
Yeah.
Holy crap. So, all right, that made me
46,
think about 46 years later. Thank you very much. In fact, I just saw a note. There was a reunion, a 50-year reunion at Yokota High School coming up sometime in 2023. When we come back, we will continue with what we have, a couple of more notes that we'll look at with college football, the NFL, and also what you are talking about when it comes to the text line and chat room. 254-339-1122. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. 2 locations for Pioneer Steel and Pipe. 2 locations, Waco and Bryan, the brand new facility that is getting closer and closer to being available in Waco. And what they do, steel, pipe, and metal, what they do, customer service, that is how you stay in business since 1943. But you can be the nicest people and everyone can love you, but you still have to have, if you have great customer service, you still have to have the great product. You still have to be able to get the product to the customer and make sure they don't just do it once if they're part of contractors, builders, whatever, home or real estate. You have to make sure they come back over and over again, and that's what customers have done, Pioneer Steel and Pipe, since 1943. PioneerBoys.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at goarmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Championship if you score in all likelihood, and perhaps the CFB. Jackson trying to turn the corner, and he did not get there. Jaron McFay raced him to the pylon and made sure he came up inches short.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports on YouTube. Here we go. Sikkim 365 Radio online. The app is getting closer. That's all we can say. It's been down for too long.
Blame the Aggies.
Again, yeah. From Skeeter Bear, I don't read too many of the notes from the message boards, but on occasion when it does relate to what we've done on this show, he said Dennis Dodd, it's Dodd, by the way, it's singular, didn't exactly give a ringing endorsement for the Big 12 being anything more than a future group of 8 conference in the future. I sure hope you guys have him back on the show one day to eat some crow on this, if he has to. It does reiterate the dilemma that the middle class of the Pac-12 is in. Do they wax nostalgic for keeping the Pac-12 together, but they stay put, they thereby doom both themselves and the Big 12 plus the ACC to unquestioned third-tier status? Or do they make a move which would guarantee at least maybe a close second-class status?
Well, I mean, that's what they need to try and do, in my opinion, because you can't just sit around and wait to figure out what the Big Ten and SEC are up to, because they're going to sit there and wait for, somebody to, like a USC, UCLA, Oklahoma, or Texas, and so who's the next one? So Notre Dame's a different animal altogether, and if that happens, then, Katie barred the door. But, who says, because there's really only 8 schools after Notre Dame that you could even really make the argument for, given their strategy, that the Big Ten or SEC would want to help that. Because they're not going to do, like, the Big Ten's already got that, their television market's kind of covered. So there's only other ones that would really help, because they're not going to go deep into the roster. They're not going to just all of a sudden decide, well, we need to be in Kansas, so Kansas State's on the list. It's not that. There are...
Give me the 10.
I would say...
And I don't think there's even close to 10.
I said there's probably only 8 more. Okay. Like Notre Dame's the one, North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, Miami.
Would make them... Okay, when you say that, and those are
Virginia.
Okay, would actually
Louisville.
make them more valuable?
Would fit into what they're doing and maybe help their value. Well, but we don't know that. Again, we don't know that, because a lot of this is theoretical dollars right now.
Nobody knows what the end game is.
Yeah.
Everybody's saying, "Oh, it's going." Ask some people, it's the money. Okay, well, if it's only the money, if it's just about money, well, then the party's pretty much over outside of Notre Dame.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, and then beyond that, it's like maybe a couple schools, like maybe, and that's with Notre Dame, not without Notre Dame. So if it's just about money, then it looks like we'd pretty much be close to done if the goal is to not lower your value any further, because everybody being added outside of pretty much Notre Dame and maybe an Oregon or somebody like that is going to lower the value for everybody else. So if that's the end game, then that's pretty clear cut. If the end game is to be at 24 teams per conference, then, with 2 major conferences, then we're far from done. And there's going to be, a mass exodus from the ACC at some point, and some of those Pac-12 schools and probably some Big 12 schools will be on their way out as well, if they're going to blow up to those types of numbers. But do we know that? No, we don't. We don't know what the end goal is as far as the number of teams they want. Dennis Dodd is reporting, the SEC is good at 16 or Big 10 is good at 16 for right now. So if we knew that, we could say, okay, they're at 16, they're good at 16. Well, then, boom, that story's over. But we don't know. And certainly Kevin Warren being in media days and saying, no, we're open, we're willing to be open for anything. That's not calming the waters whatsoever either. So there's a lot of speculation on what the end goal is, but I don't think anybody other than the power brokers behind the scenes, whoever that all entails, really know, like, what's that final number of teams? What's the final goal of the conferences involved? What's the playoff system look like? And what does college football look like? You know what I mean? Without having those blanks filled in, in theory, the Big Ten could just keep adding and adding teams. And I know that the antitrust thing that he mentioned comes into play at some point and all that. But, yeah, I don't know. I think there's still, there's just the mystery of who's actually pulling the strings behind the scenes and what do they want to see college football look like in 10 years. We have a loose idea, but what exactly does that look like? Is that 32 teams from 2 conferences? Is that 50 teams from 2 conferences? Is that 4 conferences and 75 teams? Like, what is that end goal?
Do you think they know?
I think that there's too many smart people who have been able to make moves like USC, UCLA to the Big Ten, and like Oklahoma, Texas to the SEC that were clearly way smarter than everybody else in the room, or were able to see where people weren't going to be looking and make moves that, I think there's always something going on because there's always more money to be made. The time when it's going to just completely settle down is when the money dries up.
Well, the money will never dry up.
Okay.
I'm not saying there won't be this, oh my God, Armageddon. How many times have we heard about the bubble, the television bubble? The NFL's making more now than ever before. College football's now making more than ever before. And they're about to make even more when they expand the playoff to whatever number it's going to be. Now, why would the bubble ever hit? We've seen the economy go up and down. Hell, we've seen COVID shut things down. We've seen
because at some point it doesn't make sense to pay $2 billion that you only get $1 billion back on. At some point you're making money. When you stop making money, that's when you would stop, in theory, doing whatever you've been doing.
The numbers, though, are a little bit different. I get what you're saying, yes, but what was $1 million 20 years ago, I don't know what it is now as far as a contract. When Nolan Ryan was $1 million a year player, we're like, oh my God.
So what are you saying exactly?
I'm saying that the money's never going to dry up.
So what? Huh? So meaning what?
That it would never stop.
You just mentioned a minute ago that, or when the money's gone, the money's never going to be gone.
Okay, so before that, you're saying when does expansion stop, basically?
Yeah, expansion's only going to bring more money to the table, right? More teams.
Right. So let's go back to where you originally started and what I responded with. What were you talking about? When I said the money's never going to dry up.
The money is never going to. I thought you said the money will until the money dries up.
Yeah, you asked when things are going to stop. Is that what your question was? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah,
things will stop when the money dries up. So then
money is never going to.
So then it's never going to stop.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
that's all I was saying.
Yeah. So that's.
So whatever they may think is going to be in 5 or 10 years, 5 or 10 years from now, that changes because then here's another massive amount of money, and now especially with technology bringing in even more ways and more money and more options of revenue. It's 24, 32. I don't know. That's why I'm saying I don't know if anybody knows the end. It's going to change all the time. The NFL used to, have how many teams? 20-something? Okay. Now there's 32. So the college football is going to always be in change. It's always going to be change. Whatever everyone thinks is 32 is going to be the number, could end up being 50. Could be. It's never going to change. There's never going to be, like, the days of when I knew who were in the American League and the National League, the days when I knew who were in the NFL in 2 or 3 or 4 whatever divisions, there's nothing that's stagnant anymore. Nothing.
Okay.
It's over.
Yeah, well,
I think you're like coming to grips with the reality. That's what it sounds like. Yeah, it's never going to be 1974 again.
I don't want it to be 1974.
No, I know, and I'm not arguing with it. I'm just saying that, like, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. So if you want the American League and the National League to be 15 teams forever,
never.
Too bad. It's done.
If
it's
you
dead.
want college football to be 32 teams, we don't know. We don't know.
Well, that's the thing that's the thing though. We're getting angry, or not even angry, but we're getting frustrated about something we don't know.
That's there you go. That's perfect.
Right. So let's just see how it plays out. And so everybody's speculating. That's the fun in this. But yeah, like I was saying, nobody really knows except for the power brokers behind the scenes.
And I said, do they even know?
I think that they have to have an idea of where they're going. I mean, I don't think that you just wake up, if you're Kevin Warren, you're like, I think I want to go poach the LA schools today. No, like there's something that occurred and there was thoughts behind that and there was a plan and there was, maybe some things that happened that sped up the process or whatever. But no, I don't believe for 1 second that there's nobody behind the scenes in college football right now who's not thinking about how they're going to change the game in a dynamic way. 10, 20, 30. I think everybody's always got something in some aspect of business that's always looking for what the next revolution is going to be. And for college football, it might be a 2-league, 32 overall team super conference. It might be 64.
Yep.
It might be everybody that we're talking about already, but under 3 banners. Like, that's what we're all trying to talk about and figure out. And that's why it's fun, is that none of us know what the hell's actually going to be the end result.
I don't even think the leaders know. I don't.
I don't think that
they have their ideas, but I don't think they actually know.
Well, because there's not a one thing. It's, okay, Kevin Warren wants one thing. George Kleofkoff wants another thing.
Yep.
Brett Yormark wants another thing. So they know what they want, but that doesn't mean that's what they're going to get.
No, but that's where it comes in, where I would like to see college football leadership come together, is everybody just admit that we all want more money. Okay, how can we all make more money together and figure out where this thing is going to go?
Together?
Yes, together.
No.
Well, I mean, but that's how it's going to be better for everybody.
Here you go. Here's where it's eventually going to stop, is when there's 2 super conferences and there's nobody to topple them off, and that's just what it is. And they're making all the money that can be made, and there's no more to be made.
But those super conferences, like the NFL and other sports, will eventually grow themselves. They won't stop at 32. If that's the number, they'll add 2. Eventually, there'll be some that force themselves into it.
There's going to be a point where, there's a dividing line too of, okay, well then what do we do with all these other football teams that don't get to do this?
Which is why a lot of
what James Crepio was talking about yesterday.
Is why the thoughts of panicking over TCU or Baylor's future is kind of silly right now.
Not if you're TCU and Baylor.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying in general, it's silly because they're panicking over something they don't even know yet.
There you go. No, you're right. But I can see why.
But then you say that you can see why, and yet you can't envision a scenario where they're not going to be involved, right?
That's my opinion. I cannot.
Well, yeah, but everybody's got. And I know, but we're talking about your opinion. That's why we're talking.
My opinion is I don't think that I could ever see certain schools that are not included in playing for the ultimate national championship. That doesn't mean I'm right. I just can't see that being the case. Now, there are some that are floundering. There are some twisted in the wind. It might be some that I don't see being left out. But if they have 32 or 48 or 64, whatever the number is, the NFL eventually expanded. Why won't they?
Why doesn't the NFL have 60 teams if it's that easy?
They used to have about 24, 18, whatever the number. They used to not even have teams from the AFL. They expanded.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if there's ever a finite number where it ends. And
no.
I don't see how.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I'm saying, like, none of us know. That's what I said from the very beginning. Yeah, none of us know. And, yeah, I don't think it just stops at 30 teams and they sit there. Because why? Because somebody will inevitably call, hey, you know how you make some more money? Add these teams, and then it's 34. And then, boom, a decade later, hey, want to make some more money?
You know why?
Add these 10 teams.
Because some cities get larger, some schools get better.
Right.
Some commit more money, and they force themselves, like even the AFL did in football or the ABA did in basketball, to be included when the other league that was the league did not want to include them, like Live Golf and the PGA Tour. At some point, somehow, that might change dramatically.
But also, I will say this, and I said this during yesterday, and I think we're all in agreement here. It's like yeah, we all want that final answer. That's what we all talk about every day. That's what we're in search of. That's why we talk to people from across the country who also want that answer. That's the entire basis of this show, basically, is wanting that answer.
I'm saying there's never going to be an answer.
Then great for us. I mean, good.
Yeah, I don't think. I just have gotten to the point where I don't think that will ever be over.
Okay.
And we will never have a definitive answer.
Well, then that's the reality.
So,
if you like that, then great. If you don't, too bad. I mean, and that goes back to yesterday. If there are some schools, and look, I don't want anything to really change from what it's been. But if, I'm sorry, School A gets left off because they've been hanging on by a thread as it is anyways, and have really been kind of fortunate to even be making the money they were making to begin with. If they fall off the map, I don't root for that. But guess what? Life isn't fair.
Yep, you're right.
So life isn't fair. I won $1 million. I'm not getting that anytime soon.
The FBS has 31 teams.
Do they need that?
There used to be, let's say 98, 104. It keeps climbing. Do we need that? That's what James Crepea was kind of discussing.
And that's kind of why the conversation goes all the way back to around. Like maybe this culling was kind of needed. If that's what it's going to turn into, is that no, Sam Houston doesn't belong in the same bracket voting the same things as Texas does. They're two entirely different animals. Or, James Madison having the same sway as Ohio State in voting. And that's why I think that the biggest thing with this entire saga that we're talking about is this is, for all intents and purposes, yes, a way to make more money. Yes, a way to give the Big Ten more power. Yes, a way to give the SEC more power. But I think ultimately this is just getting rid of the NCAA is what it's doing. And however they have to do that, whether it's starting off with a couple leagues and then eventually getting everybody on board to where all that we're talking about is exactly the way that it was pretty much, other than some moves to some conferences, but it's all pretty much the same, leveled and everything. It's just under the question mark what you call it banner rather than the NCAA banner.
The argument about why does James Madison not belong, or why does X, Y, and Z not belong? The greatest league, the most profitable league in America, has crappy teams, and they're included.
Yeah, but that James Madison's different than Vanderbilt.
Well, wait a minute. James Madison busted their asses in a program to get
and I'm not even trying to single them out, but here we go.
Sam Houston State used to be a part of the South. No, it's part of the discussion. Sam Houston State, I'm not saying they're ever going to be at the level of Texas and Oklahoma and Alabama and Georgia, and they probably don't either. But you know what? They're damn sure trying.
Well, you know what? I know a lot of people that work their ass off to get a certain way, and life's not fair.
No, that's
again.
right.
And like that's just that's the crappy kind of just blunt answer, but that's
and look, it's kind of on the upward mobility is mostly a myth.
Yes.
It's possible, but it's not probable in a lot of things. Like
Florida State in the 70s.
Yeah, but that's new era. So they have to find a new way to be upwardly mobile, which is.
But they did. They found a way to include.
So did Sam Houston, and so did James Madison. They're moving up, but they can't just jump straight to let's play in the the playoff.
But what's happened since then, though, is college football back then was a built for not-for-profit entity that was part of. It was still the old way. And then television exploded into it and started making all these moves where back in the 70s, there were only 5 television channels anyway, if you're lucky, depending on where you lived.
I don't even know if there were 5.
Yeah. So there was 2 games on a week. Now every single game is on all over the place, and television has thrown all this money in college football that wasn't there. So it's made the power brokers decide, well, look, we don't need to let somebody grow if we don't have to. We can take their heart, their soul, their growth. The team that would have been Florida State or Miami in the 80s and 70s, we can take that out. We can stop that from happening and just take it for ourselves and keep it all here. So the talent. The other thing that happened with FSU is there were a lot of teams that still at that time didn't recruit black players because they were hateful and stupid. And Bobby Bowden said...
Those schools, yes.
Yeah, those schools, yes. The schools were. And Bobby Bowden said, no, this is going to be a school of opportunity. And if you can help us win, it doesn't matter who you are. And we're going to make people, again, give some of that upward mobility, which at that time was really possible. But then when you let corporations become what you are, because make no mistake, that's what all these conferences are. And the biggest ones, the Big Ten, the SEC, are corporations. And in this country, corporations run literally everything.
No, they do.
And so now, because back then we didn't let them. We busted up AT&T. We busted up Ma Bell. Yeah. That's what happened. Now that's not what's happening here. So they're going to let the big dogs grow be as big as they want to be. And everybody else just has to stop.
Until, like Dodd mentioned, the antitrust may creep in. And I don't know enough about, Paul, you might have to look into that because you're our big brain on that side of things. But, yeah, how does that work politically? If there is really an antitrust threshold or thing that could come across as a problem for the SEC or the Big Ten, I don't know enough about how that works. But, yeah, I mean, it is a weird landscape. It's got a lot of people on high alert and not really knowing what's coming next. But, again, I circle back to as frustrating as that is or as stressful as that may be, as unfair as that may be for some schools. And, look, we cover a school that's right there in the dead center of, who knows what the hell happens next. Yep. They could be the best team in a Division II. They'd probably be a dynasty in Division II, Baylor, with what they've got equipped with. Or they could be a really competitive, on occasion, win the Sugar Bowl type team in that level one. Because if you were to give them $100 million like you're giving everybody else, yeah, I feel confident they're going to hang with everybody else if they're on a somewhat even playing field, just like they are pretty much right now. But, yeah, I mean, that's the question is who's in, who's out. That's why everybody's speculating on Twitter. So everybody's speculating on this show. But also, when we can bring in facts, and it's just up to everybody to kind of read the factual chunks that are out there on occasion and then kind of piece that together. And all of us are trying to, basically be Sherlock Holmes and play detective and be the first to figure out what clue leads us to this ultimate answer. But, to your point, I don't think that all the people in charge know exactly what's to come because they all have different ideas of what they want to come eventually as the end game. And that's not going to be the same across the board. It's clearly we see the commissioners clashing over just this level of where everybody belongs, much less a level that would be far more exclusive potentially and way more lucrative as well. So it's complicated.
How much will possibly lawsuits, sponsors, parents, conferences somehow slow down the train? I don't think they'll slow down. I mean, everybody trying to get their piece of the pie. Parents of student athletes who are kind of get a little upset about the possibility of the fact all of a sudden their sons aren't included or daughters are not included in something?
Well, I think it would.
I'm not saying I would do that. I'm just saying everybody can sue anybody now.
Which is why the big ones will eventually win because the power will go okay, how do we squash this and squash this and squash this? Just get, feed into the big corporations because they can stomp it, and that's what's going to happen is the corporation's going to get big enough to where the little guy doesn't matter, Oh, I'm mad about this. All right, well, here's the deal. I don't think that's gonna phase into it, especially if they do pull off some of these rules, get rid of the partial scholarships.
This is why,
so then there's going to be those opportunities there for everybody. So, the reason that they are pulling the 11.2 scholarship rule and going to give all those for the the other sports is they have to make this work for Todd Line, and football and basketball are about to get a crap load more money. And because the next time they negotiate that NCAA tournament deal, it'll go up because of all this stuff. And men's basketball and football get a bunch more money, so you have to find a way to distribute it fairly, and that's what will keep, okay, well, you get a full scholarship now. What are you complaining about?
Well, that's also, again, about as far as being under a different umbrella, I think that's what's eventually going to separate it. It's going to do it itself. You're going to have teams making so much more money than others or passing rules that only some are able to, actually be able to pull off and handle. And it's just naturally going to be like, hey, we can't hang with
a bunch of these different schools. And I know that there's some that are able to hang and manage as well, but I think that with the new TV figures, if you're really talking about one school making $100 million, I mean, is Alabama making $100 million a year off a TV deal and whatever package they're going to get? Right now they live in the same world as a lot of schools who are lucky to make tens of millions of dollars, and they manage to make it work. But I think it's so clear that golf is so big and it's just such a different world that they're just taking those that are, the upper tier and breaking them off into their own little world. And people might not like that, but it does appear the direction that we're going in. And I can't really fault those schools for also feeling that way in some way, that, yeah, we belong in our own group with our similar, maybe not so much always similar minded, but similar revenue, similar things that we do, similar ideas in some cases, and similar platforms. We're not like 100 and something other schools. And it's time to stop pretending like we are.
Here are some of the responses in the chat room on this discussion. And I kind of go in and out with some of these discussions. I don't know the mechanism for removing a team from a conference, but I recall Temple was kicked out of the Big East way back. So if it can happen, I think that may be going back to, and this is AMAC, with Rutgers.
Yes, that's going to the idea of it's going to be super elite, and it's not going to involve ultimately.
All due respect to Rutgers.
Yeah, schools that aren't the big brand names, and the media market in New York's great, but it's Rutgers, not Auburn or something, and so there is that idea out there. I don't know how legitimate that is. I don't know how that works to where that would even be feasible, or if that would be something that the Big Ten would actually want to do, where they would go, okay, we've sapped the New York market now. We don't need you anymore. We're just going to throw your carcass on the side of the road because you're not good at football. Like, is that how simple it's going to be? Because that just seems like.
One school doesn't seem to have enough value to be a part of a conference, then why would a school that doesn't seem to have enough value to be a part of the conference get to stay in it?
Yeah, well, I mean, they do.
Why'd they get invited in the first place?
Yeah, they got there was
made a mistake. Then
they didn't have value.
Admit they had a mistake. Maybe this team has more value than this team. You wonder if that may start happening.
But there's value beyond sports too, in that the Big Ten is all about their big research collective as well, which is billions of dollars in their libraries and all that stuff as well. I know that that's not necessarily driving this train, but that also keeps them able to do this and keep the bookworms, and I'm not saying that derogatorily, but the people that the presidents and all these things who have to answer to academic councils and state governments and all that stuff to say, why are you doing this at the expense of student athletes and blah, 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 blah. They'll say, yeah, but if we partner with this school, their endowment is this big, and then we are partners of this research money, and that's more money for you. And everybody's like, yay, conference realignment.
From Dennis, 45% of Americans said that football was their favorite sport to watch in 2008. It's dropped to 33%, and the coming generations are going to probably tank that number further.
We'll see. I mean, things are cyclical.
But they're still more valuable now in the television revenue than ever before.
Making more money, millions are still watching, and cable's art, it was dead 5 years ago, and it's still around in some form or fashion. It's still making bukus of money. So yeah, I'm hesitant to just be all in on like football's dying and it's going to be, it's still the number one sport in America by a large margin. I think the NBA is starting to grow. MLB's dying. I mean, I think we all know that. Hockey's, it's pretty much hockey's what it is. I mean, it's what it's pretty much always been. It might see a viewership bump here and there. I don't know what the latest numbers are on that, but it's not moving anywhere.
It's not even in the same discussion.
It's not even in the same realm. It's not.
The NFL, all the way down, and then 17 or so every year. The next thing is college football. From Donnell, college football is always evolving, just like most institutions. Just compare technology of now to technology in the 60s.
Yes, exactly. And where did new SEC team Texas play their ball most recently? Big 12. Where did they play before that? How about before that? I mean, realignment's not new. Mm-hmm. There's already been books written about it. Bruce Feldman's going to have like his third in a trilogy about realignment at this rate. So, like that's what's kind of weird to me is this whole, side of the fandom where it's like, just because things change or things change the way you don't like doesn't mean the sport is dying. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean it's dying. It means it's different or you don't like it as much.
It's not dying. It's actually become more popular.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's evolving is what it's doing. None of us should be the same 20 years after the fact of what we were 20 years prior, right? We should all mature, evolve, become different people, find different interests, things like that.
And college football is just in a state where it's evolving again. And it's done that before. It's done that again. We didn't start off college football with the Pac-12, the ACC, the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12. And now we're shaking it up, and oh my gosh, it's all falling apart. They were all shaken up to one extent or another at some point in time. Tulane used to be in the SEC. I'm sure they would still love to be, but that's just life. So none of this is new. It's just on a grander scale in an era of far more media attention under a far bigger microscope than they ever had in the 80s, 90s, 70s, and wherever else when it came to the discussion surrounding it. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
and I think people love speculation because
it used to be the Pac-8.
Right, and there was one of the West Coast,
the PCC,
the PCC, and so like we're gonna die. We're crying over the death of the Pac-12 potentially. It's been other stuff before.
If you're a part of the death, yeah.
Right, but I mean, again, that's the whole life isn't fair. Like, hey, I want Baylor to be safe and secure, and especially the team I root for, Oklahoma. Hey, I don't have to worry about them; they're good. But yeah, Baylor, I want them to be safe and secure. Whether they are or not, it's not in my control. I mean, I would love for the universe to say, hey, Craig, we're going to do what makes you happy. But guess what? I know it's a 50-50 chance that Baylor could be in a new Big Ten or SEC and thrive. They could be in an exclusive grouping. They could be in a 120-team Big Ten and SEC. They might be on whatever the hell Division II is in 10 years. I don't know, but that's part of the fun and the speculation.
All right, good stuff. It's a great topic. We've had a lot. Thank you for the feedback. And Paul, go.
I wanted to say and follow up on the Rutgers thing. I'm all for the fun and speculation, but I think the whole idea of like kicking teams out of conferences is like way ahead of the curve of where we are right now. Yeah. Especially like the idea of just like, we want this to be exclusive. See you, Rutgers. I don't know how realistic that is.
Temple got pulled out for not pulling their weight.
It was unrealistic to think that perhaps a lot of schools would no longer be a part of certain conferences, 20 years ago.
But Temple got kicked out of their conference because they were not pulling their weight at all. And, I mean, anything. Like, they're not financially, they're behind. They had some malfeasance there. Rutgers, as long as you fulfill your contractual obligations, they're not going to kick you out.
All right.
That's why Temple got kicked out. You know, they weren't.
I just went blank. The dragon is loose.
That's Ricky
Okay,
Steamboat.
Paul, you were going to get to this. Your buddy and you and him trade text messages. This Manchin and Tuberville.
Joe Manchin.
What
and
did
Tommy
they tell
Tuberville.
you on the phone? What are they going to do?
Those guys, they're not my buddies. But you know, there is NIL legislation now. There's several things in the pipeline, but Joe Manchin and Tommy Tuberville are gonna work on a bipartisan bill about trying to put some guardrails in it. And however you feel about Tommy Tuberville and the other things he has policy on, you would think that one of his areas of expertise would be college football, because that's what he did for his whole career before he became a senator. So they're working on a bipartisan bill. That's probably the one I would think at the Senate level might get through when the elections are over, but it's out there. Manchin and Tommy Tuberville are working on one, so we'll see what happens. But there's other ones in the pipeline as well.
This is.
I don't believe all that. I mean, you're right. It's all going on, but I believe they're going to do something when they actually do it at this point, you know? I mean, it's good that they're working on it, but let's actually see it happen, you know?
From Joel, sometimes, and this is so true as well, social media sometimes sucks and creates this level of anxiety and misinformation that at any other time. No, you're right. Everything that happens is immediately in front of you, even if sometimes it's not true. We've seen that in this discussion ever since USC and UCLA with throwing stuff against the wall. It's kind of fun, though. It's fun to look at the opportunities. The mechanism of removing a team in the future is what TV executives and programs want. Things being done in the past no longer applies in the future.
But Rutgers, though. So Rutgers, for example, if they just said, we got to kick Rutgers out of the Big Ten, then the Big Ten would have to admit that it was horse hockey the whole time. I said that twice today because I want to say the bad word. But it was that at the beginning when they said they'd get the New York market. Because then you're saying, okay, well, New York market's out. We don't care about it anymore.
Or what if they don't get the New York market?
What if they don't anyway? That's
what if they don't
admitting.
show an increase in anything from outside the New York.
They probably haven't, but I mean that still would make them have to admit that, which I don't think they would.
As long as they're getting the revenue, because they might reach the New York market.
Again, this is why I circle back to what I said. There are things that I think are like, okay, is that possible? Could that happen in theory? Yes. Is that anywhere close to happening though? No, it's not. And that was my point. Is like, yeah, it can lead to all sorts of fun, but like that part of it, the could Rutgers get kicked out one day part, is nowhere close to happening in my mind in any way, shape, or form. That it's just kind of, it's fun to speculate, but that's kind of like one of those pointless things for the time being. That's where I was coming from. But yet we sit here and actually started debating it. And yeah, it's going to be a debate probably at some point, and there's reason to think about why it could happen, but I just don't see how that's anywhere close.
It's not imminent. You don't even know if it's on the radar. But if, in fact, we've seen how things have dramatically changed, even though, again, expansion, realignment, whatever has been going on a long, long time, if they are now starting to separate this level from the rest of whoever that is, then it would not surprise me at some point if some schools are also asked, well, you're no longer invited to be a part of it. Yeah, the thing is, it's great topic, it's great discussion, speculation. We appreciate your opinions, but damn it, we started off talking about maybe the top teams in the country. We know those 5 or 6 teams, and you could throw them in the air and pick any of them. Paul Catalina's top 5 is next. The city of Woodway, they have another event coming up just around the corner. They have 7 hotels, by the way, just southwest of Waco. If you are coming into the town, and it may not be because you're coming in to watch a football game at McLean Stadium or even eventually basketball season around the corner at the Farrell Center with men's and women's basketball. Maybe it's coming in to see what they have here, which, of course, the business side of Waco has exploded. The tourism in Waco has exploded, and a lot of people never thought they would ever say that or see that. So you kind of almost in relationship to changes in sports. Magnolia, the Silos, and much, much more. They have 7 hotels for you to check. If you need to, if you go to get a hotel and it's booked, you can actually get that done with 7 of them. Also, the city of Woodway will have, coming up August the 12th, Woodway Family Movie Night, featuring Clifford the Big Red Dog. September 9th, concerts at the Arboretum featuring Jacko Pierce. Those are available. Go online, discoverwoodway.com.
This month, Allen Samuels is having the Make This the Summer event on the new 2022 Ram trucks. Designed to be durable, functional, and stylish, these legendary award-winning trucks give you that first-class feel. Luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options that you'd expect from a premium truck. Come see our selection today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com. Allen Samuels in Waco, the place to shop for Ram trucks.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon wrap filet. And of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged
bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
All right, this was supposed to be yesterday, but we had some breaking information at the end of the show, so dove into that. So in honor of...
So you're going to do a top 10?
No. I didn't want... Emery told me I wasn't allowed to.
Okay.
Because he's the one who has to do the graphics. So I'm kind of at the mercy of Emery. And he's a happy-go-lucky guy, so I don't want to ever change that. I don't want to quelch his spirit. He just had a big date this last week. Did you guys know that about Emery? Big date in Oklahoma.
No.
Big date.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You drove all the way up there for that?
Yeah, see?
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So, top 5 best baseball play-by-play announcers. And these guys are from the early era. I mean, I could probably do it by era. There's one guy I left off this list. I didn't really know which one to put him in, and that's Harry Carey. Did not make this list because these guys, except for one, are all kind of even a little bit older than him. But I don't know. So
older than Harry Carey?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
So, and while he was old, remember, he did not live a healthy lifestyle, which is why we don't have Carey here. Carey. Number 5, Kurt Gowdy. Used to do the Red Sox, was fantastic. Hear those great games. I'm sure, and I know he did a little bit of football too. Not a little bit. He did quite a bit of football, but he did the Red Sox for a long time. He did I believe the NBC baseball game of the week for a long time.
Was it Kurt Gowdy and Pee Wee Reese?
Yeah, I think so.
Tony Kubek?
Yeah. Was unbelievable. Number 4. This one goes way back. This goes back to the 50s and 60s. Mel Allen was the Yankees play-by-play guy, and his how about that was Mel Allen. Mel Allen also was responsible for, in 1961, setting Mickey Mantle up with some quack doctor that gave him a shot in his hip that ate flesh away from the bone because he was feeling under the weather. But that's just some
Mel
fun.
Allen, yeah.
Mel Allen. He also used to do This Week in Baseball.
That's what I was going to bring up.
This Week in Baseball. When I was a kid, he wasn't doing play-by-play anymore. He was just doing This Week in Baseball. He was really great. Number 3, Ernie Harwell did the Tigers forever. Ernie Harwell did the Tigers. I remember, a few years back when he retired, and hearing that last game kind of got me choked up. Like listening to his last broadcast was unbelievable. Ernie Harwell was great.
You need to. This is your wheelhouse right here.
No, I'm going to bring up Al Kaline.
Forget the chat room for a second.
Norm Cash, Denny McClain, 1968, 131 games. The Mel Allen This Week in Baseball, you could just hear his voice. It's kind of like the guys that do certain shows, TV intros or whatever. But Ernie Harwell, sometimes you hear about Harry Carey, you hear about this and that. He has to be in what is the Mount Rushmore of broadcasters, no question.
Absolutely. Number 2, Jack Buck. And there's only, in my opinion, one baseball man better than Jack Buck. And he was the Cardinals forever. The Kirk Gibson home run call has 2 different ones because Jack Buck was doing it on TV and Vin was doing it on the radio for the Dodgers. Vin's call is great. Jack's call is great. And to think that both those guys are at the game at the same time doing the same great play boggles my mind.
And both of them did it well in all the moments. He also was the one, did he not hit? Did Jack Buck call the McGuire home run? Mm-hmm. The Mark McGuire home run that broke the record?
Yeah, he was still doing the Cardinals then. Yeah, so
the weakest home run maybe that he ever hit. That happened to be the biggest home run that he ever hit.
He hit it like barely over the 315, whatever it was.
But that was the one that was the steroids home run, and that ball normally
should have been
get
a
out.
grounder through third and short. Yeah, exactly.
So
you have him ahead. You have him on the list ahead of, and Harry Carey's not on.
I love Harry Carey, but. I love Harry Carey. I grew up because when I was a kid, when especially Craig and I were kids, the national games we watched were the Braves which we had Skip Carey, is Harry Carey's son, but the Cubs, or they would do the White Sox sometimes on WGN with Hawk and Wimpy, and I liked those guys as well, or Pick to Click and all that. But Harry Carey was great, but he was a little bit of a train wreck late in the games because he was just housing Old Styles and Budweisers like nobody's business.
All of us get old.
Yeah, well, he was doing that when he was young, too.
We all start losing things.
Yeah. I mean, take me out to the ball game. They literally had a harness for him because they were like, he's going to fall over one day, and we can't have that. So that's why Harry Carey was not on this list. I understand that might be blasphemy to some of you. But number one, and he passed away yesterday at the age of 94, kept doing it until the age of 91, was absolutely a poet on the air, Vin Scully. I saw a highlight somebody posted of how good he made the Dodgers committing 5 errors on one play a couple years ago sound, and it was just so damn good. He was so great. And I didn't, when you're younger and you hear, I heard Vin Scully, he would do national games occasionally, but I was in college and I saw that Bob Costas, Ray Charles thing. I went, I need to listen to Vin Scully more. If Ray Charles wants to listen to this guy every day, I respect his opinion. And then every chance I got to watch a Vin Scully broadcast or listen to him, I absolutely did. And there's nobody who will probably ever do it like he did because he was so unique. It's kind of asking someone, can you paint this like Picasso? No, Picasso was Picasso.
I was watching a highlight the day that he died. Madison Bumgarner, I think, was pitching against somebody, and they were going to this story about Madison Bumgarner and his wife. They something occurred where they came upon a snake. They came upon a snake. They killed the snake. When they killed the snake, they found a rabbit inside of the snake that all of a sudden moved. And they chopped him up. I guess Bumgarner chopped. And she saved the rabbit that was inside of a snake. That's the kind of...
And a very Madison Bumgarner story.
Yes. The American Sportscasters Online. I'm going to give you the top 10 of what they've said. Not arguing with yours at all, because it's arguable.
Yeah.
Vin Scully, Mel Allen, Red Barber.
Okay.
There's Kurt Gowdy, who would probably get overlooked by a lot.
Yeah.
Howard Cosell. Costas, I think that's too high, in my opinion. Jim McKay, Keith Jackson, Al Michaels, and Dick Enberg.
And not all these guys were just baseball. These guys were just
baseball. These are baseball. And Jack Buck would be a part of that. Jack Brickhouse would be someone whose name would be involved as well.
Now, I've getting a lot of Bob Uecker did make this list. Now, let me tell you, if I could have dinner, like that question, if you could have dinner with 3 celebrities, Bob Uecker would probably be one of them.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I did, this is the top 5. If it was the top 10 today, Uecker and Carey make the list hands down.
Yep.
6 and 7, boom. And then I got to probably put our friend Eric Nadel in there too, because I think he is also in the top 10. He is, in the modern era, one of the best ones. Yeah. John Miller.
Yeah.
I left John Miller off. I feel bad about that.
That's okay. Yes. No, that's okay. It's a great list. It's great to have it. It's arguable, but those are all of them legendary.
You remember how John Miller used to say Juan Gonzalez's name? It was just, I'm not even going to imitate it.
The fact that he did the Rangers games for a while was like, although Nadel, a Hall of Famer as well. Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, Levi Caraway, and Garrett Ross behind the scenes doing their thing every day that makes us look and sound great. We appreciate them. Paul, Catalina, Craig Smoak, thanks you. All of us, we thank you for the chat room.
No, I don't.
I do. I do. The chat room. And also the text line and our incredible sponsors. My God. Here we go tomorrow. We're back again. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. David Smoak. Good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.